Chapter 349. Han Fei didn't look back because he was afraid that he would go crazy and rush in to hack that guy to death from the beginning to the end. He didn't even see the shadow of that damn thing. This feeling was very bad. After passing the Seaweed City wall, there was only ordinary seaweed for hundreds of kilometers. Seeing that he was far away from the Seaweed City wall, Han Fei sat on the ground, lifted his feet, and began to check. Name, Soul Lock, Introduction, a special talent of a very few creatures. This kind of creature is made by compressing and refining a large amount of vitality, spiritual power, and spiritual energy. Once the Soul Lock is formed, it can sense the original body. It's often used to control other creatures and self-destruct when necessary. Level Advanced contains spiritual energy greater than 162 points, absorbable. When he saw the data, Han Fei's face turned green. What if this thing blew itself up? More than 10,000 points of spiritual energy. Even a F** King's spiritual weapon could be blown into pieces. However, when Han Fei saw the word absorbable, he smiled like a flower. This operation was simply a wave of 666. No wonder it was called the Demon Purification Pot. It was not worth it at all. What was worrying was that Han Fei wouldn't cooperate with a grass that he had never met at the risk of his life. Haha, I'm going to piss you off? Absorb it. The spiritual energy in the Soul Lock was gradually decreasing. Just after Han Fei absorbed less than 1,000 points, Han Fei suddenly felt that the Soul Lock slightly lit up. Han Fei was shocked. That guy was connected to this Soul Lock. He was really stupid. Swish, huh? In the Seaweed City wall, a huge ball-like seaweed suddenly shook. Where was his Soul Lock? He had just noticed something unusual, but in the blink of an eye, the Soul Lock had lost connection with him. Han Fei didn't know what the reaction of the grass was at this moment. He guessed that there must be an ironhead fish surging in its heart. But he didn't care. After entering Forge the Universe, no matter what it was, it couldn't sense it, absorb it. After a while, Han Fei looked at the Soul Lock that had no spiritual energy and had dried up, and couldn't help but chuckle. F***CK, how dare you trick me? Don't give this young master a chance. Otherwise, I'll definitely make you suffer. Without spiritual energy, the Soul Lock was torn off by Han Fei. Then, he raised his hand and chopped them into 17 or 18 pieces. When he reappeared, he was beaming with joy. It was a blessing in disguise. He had 1,000,000 points of spiritual energy again. To be precise, it was a little more than 90,000. Han Fei didn't care too much about the details. If he rounded it up, it would be 1,000,000. As for the 10 stalks of dry leaf-worm grass mentioned by the grass, Han Fei had never thought about it. He really couldn't imagine what kind of idiot would use such a huge amount of vitality to ripen 10 poisonous fruits of this level. Haha. Han Fei couldn't help but laugh, only to spit out a string of bubbles. After getting rid of the strange grass, Han Fei calmed down a little. Then he snorted heavily. Yang Ruiyun, this hateful woman. He was a professional at screwing over his teammates. Since they had come out, and their goal was the same, as long as she didn't die, it was only a matter of time before they met. At that time, even if she said something to the heavens, he couldn't believe it. A moment later, Han Fei saw many undulating creatures in the distance. Because it was too far away, Han Fei couldn't see it clearly. This time, Han Fei learned his lesson and didn't rush to that place in a hurry. He activated his perception in advance and walked over step by step. It didn't matter if he walked slowly. What mattered most was stability. Not long after, Han Fei found a few round clams in front of him. Seeing the movement, these clams quickly shut their mouths and then arched their bodies into the mud. Huh, clams? As far as Han Fei knew, clams had always been the lowest level creatures. Whether in the ordinary fishery or the level 1 or level 2 fishery, the seabed was almost covered with all kinds of clams and shells. In the level 3 fishery, Han Fei saw a lot of clams in the level 3 fishery, but he didn't have time to deal with them. But Han Fei suddenly remembered that since he entered the seaborne grassland, he didn't seem to find many clams at the bottom of the sea. Was there anything different about these clams? In his eyes, data appeared. Name colorful crystal clam. Introduction: a mutant clam that gives birth to colorful pearls. It contains all kinds of colors and reflects the colors of all things. Level 27, quality, rare, contains spiritual energy greater than 56 points. Edible effect: long-term consumption can increase blood energy. Collectible, colorful pearls, absorbable, colorful pearls. Han Fei was slightly surprised. Colorful pearls? Were they? Without hesitation, Han Fei picked up a knife and chopped on the shell of a colorful crystal clam with a clang. With a crack, the colorful crystal muscle was split into two halves. After all, it was only a level 27 creature, and it could be killed by Han Fei with one slash. However, before Han Fei picked up the clam meat, he saw many bright lotus flowers floating over from not far away. Yes, Han Fei was sure that his eyes were not deceiving him. A group of tricolored lotuses was swirling towards him. Cautiously, Han Fei immediately retreated. After retreating dozens of meters, Han Fei saw flower-like small fish floating on the lotus seeds of the tricolor lotus flowers. Wow, that's amazing. There are really miracles in life. What the hell is this? In his eyes, data appeared again. Name: lotus fish. Introduction: a well-behaved and harmonious fish that doesn't like fighting and killing. Before they die, they will close their petals and sink to the bottom of the sea. Lotus fish like to eat colorful pearls, which can keep their body luster forever. Because they are born pure, they can get rid of filth. Level 31, quality, rare, contains spiritual energy greater than 1,219 points. Edible effect: long-term consumption can help broaden the meridians. Collectible: none. Absorbable. Han Fei blinked his eyes, looking at the lotus fish that were spread out vertically and horizontally, and couldn't help but like them. This fish was about the same size as Little White, but it was more colorful. Although it was not as good-looking as Little White, it was chubby and quite good. On the heads of these lotus fish, there was a small flower of different colors. There were almost all kinds of colors. It was not an exaggeration to say that it was a group of flowers competing for beauty. Han Fei had seen two kinds of plant fish. The first kind was the wooden fish, which was not aesthetic. The second kind was this lotus fish. Its body and fins seemed to be made of lotus leaves. It was a non-aggressive fish. At this moment, a group of chubby and cute lotus fish surrounded the colorful crystal mussel that was killed by Han Fei. Multiple lotus seeds formed a small circle, which was quite magical. When a few purple pearls floated out of the mussel meat, the colorful crystal mussel began to sink slowly, gradually sinking into the sand. Han Fei couldn't help but curiously put his head up. As a result, a group of lotus fish pouted their mouths and kept pointing at Han Fei's head, cheeks, chest. It seemed that this little lotus fish was angry that Han Fei killed the colorful crystal mussel. Han Fei was also speechless. I just killed a sea mussel. Why are they angry? Don't many fish like to eat sea mussels? Why are these lotus fish so friendly to sea mussels here? Those lotus fish seemed to be angry and calmed down quickly. They seemed very happy to see Han Fei. 5 or 6 lotus fish had already begun to rotate around Han Fei. As they rotated, Han Fei found that colorful stardust scattered from their bodies. Suddenly, Han Fei felt as if he had been sprinkled with silver light powder and felt uncomfortable all over. Han Fei touched the heads of these little fish and played with them for a while. Then he saw how these lotus fish ate. It turned out that they didn't eat meat at all. What they ate was the colorful pearls in these colorful crystal mussels. No wonder they looked so beautiful. Han Fei only stayed for less than half an hour and was ready to move forward. But when Han Fei was about to move forward, he saw a large group of hundreds of lotus fish blocking in front of him. They just wouldn't let him go. Han Fei smiled and said, "Don't make trouble. I still have something to do. I will come back to play with you later." Huh? Han Fei suddenly turned around and found that a big lotus fish had bitten his clothes and dragged him back. Han Fei couldn't help but frown. They don't let me go forward. Is there something ahead? Chapter 350. On the way to the seaborne prairie, Han Fei only felt tired because he had encountered all kinds of things. At this moment, he finally met a group of obedient and harmless lotus fish. It felt more like they were trapped here by something. Han Fei touched the large lotus fish, and regardless of whether the other party understood him, he said via voice transmission, "I'll go and have a look. I'm here to hunt for treasures, and I can't stay here. Otherwise, I'm afraid it will bring you disaster." He didn't know if this lotus fish understood Han Fei's meaning. Han Fei was ready to move again. Although there were still lotus fish blocking in front of Han Fei, they were not as strong as before. On the contrary, under the leadership of the big lotus fish, a group of hundreds of lotus fish swarmed around Han Fei and swam forward. Han Fei smiled. "Why are you here? Send me off? I'm awesome. You don't have to send me off." Seeing that it was useless to say anything, Han Fei didn't say anything. Thinking about it, it might be because these lotus fish were pure and hospitable. It was not a short journey. Han Fei wasn't in a hurry anyway. So, he played with the lotus fish while hurrying on his way. He didn't know if it was Han Fei's illusion, but along the way, Han Fei only felt extremely peaceful in his heart. In the neon brilliance, his spiritual power seemed to have increased again, and his perception range had obviously increased by several meters. Han Fei couldn't help but look at the lotus fish again, only to find that they were all cute and didn't seem to know what was going on. Huh, strange. Why did my spiritual power suddenly increase? Han Fei was a little surprised. Could it be that the myriad colors scattered by these lotus fish could actually improve spiritual power? Han Fei suddenly sat cross-legged, and a small piece of the God-scaring painting appeared in his mind. But unlike in the past, the effect of meditating on the God-scaring painting this time was dozens of times better than in the past. All kinds of complex lines and patterns seemed to be easier to remember. After half a day, when a piece of the God-scaring painting was completely memorized by Han Fei felt that his perception range had increased by another 50 meters. He had become a living 350 meters. When he opened his eyes, those lotus fish surrounded Han Fei, sprinkling sparkling, colorful stardust from time to time. What a group of little cuties, huh? Han Fei looked at the various colorful stardust on his body and couldn't help closing his eyes again. What is an opportunity? This was the so-called opportunity, which dangling fisher dared to say that he could increase his perception range by 50 meters in half a day. Wondering you once said that when she was a great fishing master, she just tried to learn spiritual perception. Only when one reached the realm of a dangling fisher would one gradually understand and develop the ability of spiritual perception. But in fact, among the people Han Fei had met so far, even the advanced dangling fishers couldn't perceive more than 100 meters. Han Fei wasn't sure either. Under what circumstances could the so-called spiritual perception be greatly improved? But he couldn't be before becoming a peak-level dangling fisher. Half a day later, when Han Fei's perception range reached 400 meters, he seemed to hit a bottleneck. Although he could still improve, his speed was not as fast as before. Interesting. Mental perception is still limited. It's a pity that if I had enough time, I could stay here for a full month and forcefully meditate on the God-scaring painting. I'm afraid that even if my speed slows down, I can still increase it by more than 100 meters. However, Han Fei didn't intend to waste this time. He couldn't waste a whole month on the seaborne prairie. The level 3 fishery was so big that he had never been to too many places. Han Fei opened his eyes and suddenly stood up. Voila! What made Han Fei dumbfounded was that he was almost covered by the thousands of colorful stardust. As he stood up, tiny stardust particles slid off his body like fine sand. And the lotus fish around Han Fei flicked their tails from time to time and rotated the lotus seat, making the stardust fly up gradually. The seawater dozens of meters around seemed to change into a colorful illusion. Han Fei touched the head of the lotus fish that came over and said with a smile, "This time, I'm really leaving. If I have the chance in the future, I'll come again." With every step Han Fei took, stardust slid off his body, which looked extremely weird. But the closer Han Fei got to the AI in this water area, the more he thought about it, the more he could feel the tension of the lotus fish behind him. Gradually, The thousands of lotus fish that followed Han Fei were reduced to only a few hundred at this moment, and this number was still decreasing. Han Fei knew that danger was coming, especially when there was only the largest lotus fish left beside Han Fei. Han Fei's heart almost jumped out of his throat. He saw a quiet sea ahead of him. It was like a clear distinction between black and white. If the place he was in right now was a flourishing and beautiful sea of lotus flowers and fish, then 100 meters away would be a cold, lonely, and desolate wasteland with no colors at all. Han Fei said, "Go back." Seeing that the big lotus fish refused to go, Han Fei didn't care about it anymore. Han Fei activated his spiritual perception and walked forward step by step. After walking for about 500 meters, the big lotus fish also stopped and looked at Han Fei reluctantly from behind. At this moment, Han Fei was standing at the forefront, looking at the scene in front of him and swallowing his saliva. This scene reminded him of the saying, "When things reach an extreme, they will move in the opposite direction." In front of him, there was a huge abyss with no end in sight. However, this seemingly barren, forbidden land wasn't really devoid of life. In the ravine, there were black insect fish, no bigger than a palm, shaped like rotten worms, with holes in their heads, and half of their bodies exposed outside. Yes, when Han Fei saw the information in his eyes, he felt goosebumps all over his body. Name insect fish introduction, a combination of insect and fish, a parasitic fish species. It survives on rotten food, likes to kill each other, has a fierce and cruel temperament, and is filthy among fish. Its insects can leave the body and penetrate into the marrow. Level 9, quality rare, contains spiritual energy, 4 points, edible effect, inedible, collectible, none, unabsorbable, F***CK. What the hell is this place? How many kinds of unknown creatures are there in this damn sea? Although this insect fish was only level 9, which seemed unreasonable, he could understand it if he thought about it carefully. For example, the marching sea leeches were extremely low level and contained very little spiritual energy, but if he was really entangled by them, the consequences would be very terrible. The same was true for this kind of fish. They seemed to be low level, but the fish were dense. Han Fei could see that they were almost head to head, and he couldn't even tell which was the fish head and which was the insect head. F***CK. Han Fei looked up at the sky, and there were sporadic insect fish swimming in the darkness. Han Fei wondered if he could swim over from a high place. But as soon as he wanted to try, he felt something pulling him from behind. Han Fei looked back and found that it was the lotus fish that had bitten his clothes. Han Fei said, "Phew, it's okay. If anything happens, I'll come back." After that, Han Fei quickly swam to the top of the chasm. Behind him, a pair of wings grew out, and his whole body drew a dazzling arc in the sea. However, just at the moment when Han Fei broke through the air, the abyss seemed to be in an uproar. Countless insects and fishes swept up like a storm of doomsday. Little Goldspeed was fast enough. However, no matter how fast it was, it couldn't do anything to the dense insect fish in this sea area. Han Fei frowned. He waved his hand, wrapped himself in a water ball, and activated a spiritual energy protective cover. In the school of insect fish, he dodged left and right. In this silent and dark water area, Han Fei's figure was extremely dazzling. The scene was extremely chaotic for a while. But after a while, Han Fei had lost his direction, because as far as his perception could reach, there were all insect fish, and there was no gap in all directions. Han Fei's face became gloomy. He decided to rush out first, and then choose a direction. But just as Han Fei was waving the blue sea wandering dragon daggers with murderous intent, the school of insect fish on his side suddenly made way for him. And behind that road, a lotus fish was swimming slowly. The lotus seat under the lotus fish was hovering, and a colorful mist of light spread out. Seeing this, the insect fish immediately dodged. When the lotus fish swam to Han Fei, the lotus seat under the lotus fish automatically separated and fell under Han Fei's feet. Han Fei was surprised. He knew that the lotus fish could repel filth, but he didn't know it could be so magical. The lotus fish opened the way in front of the lotus seat. One fish opened the way, and thousands of fish retreated. This scene was quite shocking to him. Han Fei couldn't help but wonder, is there such a good fish in this world? Why are they so helpful? It seems that I didn't help them, but just played with them for a while. Chapter 351. This abyssal canyon was about 600 to 800 kilometers in size. Sitting on the lotus seat, Han Fei was surprised to see the sea of insects around him retreating, and none of them dared to come forward. Han Fei sighed. Hey, little lotus flower, can you understand what I say? The lotus fish swam around Han Fei. However, at the moment, it looked a little weak and just sprinkled colorful mist occasionally. Han Fei guessed that crossing the sea of insects was not as easy as he thought. This lotus fish seemed to have paid a price, but Han Fei didn't understand why the lotus fish behaved like this. Han Fei had to think. Since entering the seaborne grassland, he had experienced a lot of dangers. Every one of them could be said to be extremely dangerous, especially in the Seaweed City Wall. That damn place could be said to be a deadly place. It was hard for him to imagine how he could cross that damn place all the way if he didn't prepare in advance. Then he met the lotus fish. But then he met this insect fish abyss. Lotus fish could help him cross the insect fish abyss. Was this a coincidence or deliberate? Why did these two completely incompatible species live next to each other? In the end, Han Fei could only attribute it to the magic of nature. Tens of thousands of species could live in an ocean. This was a very common sense thing to begin with. For example, seabed volcanic craters, geothermal springs, coral clusters, deep-sea jungles. These places actually had their own complete ecological chains. Maybe the fish here were too strange, so he felt it was strange. After all, the lotus fish abyss was very loving. After crossing the insect fish abyss, Han Fei saw a shell beach similar to that of the lotus fish. On the ground, there were also many colorful crystal mussels. The seaweed and stones were also covered with all kinds of snails. Occasionally, crabs ran rampant and then burrowed into the soil. What made Han Fei's eyes light up was that there were also lotus fish here. When the lotus fish here saw Han Fei coming over on the lotus seat, a large number of lotus fish surrounded him. For a time, the seawater was filled with colorful gauze, like a dreamy undersea fairyland. Han Fei was very surprised. Strange, strange, there are lotus fish on both sides. It seems that the insect fish are sealed in this insect fish abyss. But where did the insect fish abyss come from? Han Fei secretly smiled and shook his head. Why the hell do I care so much? With his current strength, if he really went down into the abyss, he would probably not be able to hold on for more than a short while before he was completely devoured. Han Fei played with the lotus fish for a while, and then touched the head of the lotus fish that had just sent him here. Thank you for sending me here. I'm leaving. This time, the lotus fish didn't stop him. It seemed to know that the danger had passed, and it sprinkled a colorful mist on Han Fei. He guessed that Yang Ruiyun must have been here. That woman was very scheming, but she dared to enter the dragon pool alone. She must have a big secret that she couldn't tell anyone. After traveling for more than 500 li, the scenery beneath their feet changed. After the lotus fish area, everything was no longer so quiet and harmonious. During this period, he encountered crab beasts, piranhas, mess-swallowing worms, and weird algae vines. This place is so full of spirit chi. At this moment, Han Fei stopped. The spiritual energy here was more than double that of other places. He couldn't even remember how many scenes this was. After all, the vast seaborne prairie had a myriad of creatures. At this moment, this was a colorful space. If the living place of the lotus fish was elegant and quiet, then the colors of this place were strong and amazing. On the seaweed, as many as dozens of sea urchins of different colors were gnawing. On the ground, there were 4 or 5 kinds of snails digging the soil. In the stone crevices, sharp claws occasionally stretched out. Seeing the blue sea wandering dragon daggers floating beside Han Fei, those sharp claws retracted again. There were also some pearl fish swimming over Han Fei's head in groups, but they didn't attack. Of course, these were all minor problems. None of them could do anything to Han Fei. Besides, it was not these sea urchins, snails, or crabs that were the most abundant here, but starfish. There were a large number of starfish here. Starfish were crawling everywhere on the pile of shells and sand. Some starfish's body was only the size of a palm, but their tentacles could reach several meters long. Some starfish had carapaces on their backs, and their tentacles were like sharp blades or darts. Of course, most starfish were common starfish, but they were very large and had a variety of colors. In short, this place was simply a gathering place for starfish, full of king starfish. The only thing that made Han Fei feel fortunate was that there were no dry leaf starfish here. That thing was a cancer of the level 3 fishery. It was a cancer of the level 3 fishery. Like the dry leaf worm, it could absorb the vitality of others. Among these starfish, there were no cancer starfish like the dry leaf starfish, but they were even full of nourishing starfish. For example, Han Fei saw a furry starfish named Star Sunflower. When eaten, one's blood would boil and his physique would be enhanced. Cultivation would be twice the result with half the effort. If it were in the past, Han Fei would have caught all these Star Sunflower starfish as soon as possible. But now, he had learned a lot and didn't act blindly. Since he came here, he hadn't found any particularly powerful creatures in this place. But was this possible? No way. In a place like the grass prairie, there could be dangers everywhere. Without the protection of powerful creatures, it was impossible for a place to develop so safely. Unlike the lotus fish, the colorful mist of the lotus fish seemed to be able to purify the mind, and even the insect fish would retreat when they saw them. That was their ability. But in this place where starfish gathered, it would be strange if there was no creature that could protect this place. Because of this conjecture, Han Fei didn't touch any starfish here. Of course, when the tentacle starfish crawled over and strangled his ankle, Han Fei didn't show any mercy and cut off its claws with a knife. Swish! The starfish whose claws had been cut off ran away with a swish. Its speed didn't look like that of a starfish at all. Han Fei snorted. He still hated this kind of tentacle monster. Han Fei didn't like anything that had tentacles and was soft and sticky. Of course, squid could be cut off and roasted to eat. But as for the others, forget it. Because of Han Fei's knife move, many creatures here began to flee. Even those snails didn't rush up rashly. If this was an ordinary fishery, I wouldn't care if you were a fisherman or a dangling fisher. As long as you appeared in front of me, I would stab you. Han Fei couldn't help sighing. The level 3 fishery was indeed a place where intelligence was born. Even if most creatures hadn't really developed intelligence, they still had a sense of danger. Everyone knew how precious life was. Han Fei gradually sped up. This place was beautiful, but not gentle. He didn't intend to stay here for long. However, after Han Fei swam less than 20 kilometers wherever he passed, there was a sudden burst of light. Han Fei was vigilant and deliberately avoided it. However, he didn't even run 100 meters before he crashed into an invisible barrier with a bang. Shit, I knew it wouldn't be that simple. Han Fei grabbed the water-dividing seal and slapped it heavily against the invisible energy shield. Rumble, crack, the power of this blow, weighing more than 10,000 kilograms, directly shattered the invisible shield. Is the power of this seal so weak? Han Fei was a little surprised. According to the dangers encountered along the way, this land of starfish was too simple, wasn't it? While thinking, Han Fei swam 100 meters away and hit another invisible shield with a bang. Puff! Another one. I'll smash it again. Rumble. In this way, Han Fei swam less than 2 kilometers and smashed 5 seals. Who the F***CK is crazy? Why are there so many seals in this damn place? Han Fei was speechless. Which idiot is it? This kind of restriction was not strong, but it was not weak either. The weaker ones were at the junior dangling fisher level, and the stronger ones were at the advanced dangling fisher level. No matter what level it was, with Han Fei's current strength, even a seal that could trap a peak-level dangling fisher might not be able to trap him. No. It's impossible for so many seals to appear inexplicably. Is this an array? Han Fei landed, and confirmed that this was some kind of array. When a foreign enemy invaded, it would automatically set up seals. Han Fei couldn't help swallowing. This is a bit too powerful. If it was really an array of this level, it meant that if he wanted to pass through this land of starfish, he would have to break at least tens of thousands of seals. If there were only 3 or 5 seals, it would be fine. But if there were really thousands of seals, he might not be able to break through even if he exhausted all his spiritual energy. Chapter 352. Figuring this out, Han Fei stopped smashing the array, because no matter how many times he smashed it, it didn't necessarily work. A large array is invisible, and it is formed by nature. However, if it's a natural array, there must be a way to break it. This was the first sentence in the spirit-gathering scripture left by Old Jiang, which said that a good array was not necessarily carved, but made by using everything as an array, so that the array could be invisible. However, it was also added that as long as it was an array, there must be a way to break it. Han Fei had been studying arrays for a year. Although he was still a little shallow, he understood the principle. For this kind of array, formed by nature, the eye of the array was often not fixed. It was very likely that an inconspicuous little thing was the eye of the array. This was also the most terrifying thing about a natural array. If you couldn't find the eye of the array at all, how could you break it? Han Fei landed on the ground and began to walk forward step by step. Wherever he went, all the starfishes ran away. After walking about 120 meters, Han Fei encountered a barrier. Han Fei didn't stop, but turned sideways and walked to the side. After a while, Han Fei stood in this small seal and muttered to himself, 600 meters wide and 600 meters long. A single seal is so small. The difficulty of breaking it will be greatly reduced. After thinking for a while, Han Fei swam to a height of 20 meters and wandered around in this area. After a while, when he found a stone several meters large, he immediately smiled. The stones on the seabed had a long history. They were either covered with seaweed, moss, or shellfish, but a smooth stone shouldn't be. Han Fei took out the blue sea wandering dragon bow, shot the stone with an arrow, and swam out quickly. Sure enough, the boundary of the seal was gone, and Han Fei successfully broke through the barrier just now. Of course, the good scene didn't last long. Every few hundred meters, Han Fei would enter a new sealed area. But he didn't panic. It would just take a little more time. With his experience in arrays, he knew that these small arrays shouldn't be underestimated. The reason why an array within an array was terrifying was that many small arrays were interconnected. But if the eye of the small array was destroyed, the big array would definitely be damaged. Fortunately, the person who set up the array was not very clever. If it were him, with such a great array layout ability, he would definitely hide the array eye of the small array so that not even a drop of water could leak out, even burying it under the sand. Who would place the formation eye on the sand so blatantly? At first, Han Fei had to deliberately look for the array eye. However, after he broke through more than 10 small formations, he realized that the person who set up the formation was very lazy. It could be said that the person was extremely lazy. All of the small formation cores were relatively new. They had either been moved or used an eye-catching object as a formation core. In this way, it would be very easy for Han Fei to break the array. In just 2 hours, they had broken through nearly 50 small arrays. Not surprisingly, the 50 small formations were just a drop in the bucket for Haixing Land. To Han Fei's surprise, there were as many as 20 small spirit-gathering arrays among the 50 arrays. Although this spirit-gathering array had the effect of sealing, its essence was still to gather spiritual energy. Could it be that the guy who set up the formation is lacking in spirit chi? Not only the spirit-gathering array, but Han Fei also guessed why the person who set up the formation was lazy. Because this area was so large that it was very likely to be a ring, just like the seaweed wall outside, encircling the world inside in circles. According to the method of setting up the array, these arrays were likely to be made by one person. Then it was not difficult to speculate that this person thought this area was too large, So when he swam past here, he casually waved his hand, and an array was set up. He didn't even think about hiding the eye of the array. That would be a waste of time. Han Fei grinned. He felt that he had already figured out the person's mind. Although the person set up the array casually, indicating that he was very strong, because the strength of the array was not strong enough, it should not be too strong. The amount of spirit chi needed to set up thousands of arrays was imaginable. Even if one used ones, but to think, one would know that the consumption was enormous. Therefore, the person who set up the array added a large number of spirit-gathering arrays to these arrays, which indirectly led to the rich spiritual energy here. Haha, you can set up arrays, but I can't? Han Fei smiled mysteriously. Instead of breaking the small arrays one by one, he might as well make a big one at once. When Han Fei found the array eye again, he didn't touch it, but moved it. Then, looking down from above, he rearranged many places in the array. Repeating this, Han Fei spent more than 3 hours and finally transformed 7 or 8 small arrays. In fact, it was not small, covering several kilometers. At this time, Han Fei was throwing a piece of white coral at his feet. Then, he clapped his hands and chuckled. Done! Han Fei suddenly sat on the ground and drew an array with spiritual energy under his butt. After a while, a small spirit-gathering array appeared. The place where he sat cross-legged was still the original array. In order to prevent accidents later, Han Fei deliberately left this array and replaced it with a small spirit-gathering array. When this small spirit-gathering array appeared, in an instant, with Han Fei as the center, 9 sealing arrays lit up at the same time, and billowing spiritual energy surged in. The corners of Han Fei's mouth curled up. I'm not good at other arrays, but this spirit-gathering array is my livelihood, so it must work. Yes, Han Fei transformed 9 arrays, just like the plantation circle at the gate of the Thug Academy. Han Fei just replicated it. However, unlike the plantation, the spiritual energy, there was natural spiritual energy, which was much less than in the ocean. Therefore, there was no spiritual energy frenzy in the plantation. However, it was different here. The bottom of the sea, especially in places like the seabed forest, had a lot of spiritual energy. And in this land of starfish, the spiritual energy was more than double that of other places. At this moment, coupled with this series of spirit-gathering arrays, almost in the blink of an eye, a spiritual energy storm was set off here. One after another, spiritual energy tornadoes formed underwater. And the gathering point of these spiritual energy was only one place, and that was under Han Fei's, but, for a time, the billowing spiritual energy rushed straight at Han Fei like a raging wave. Han Fei was not afraid at all. Not only was he as steady as a mountain, but he also practiced the void fishing art at the same time. At this moment, Han Fei experienced what was called a gluttonous feast. With the right timing, the massive amount of spiritual energy rolled into his body, and it only took half a minute to absorb nearly 10,000 points of spiritual energy. Cultivating here for an hour was equivalent to swallowing a level 3 fishery spiritual fruit. How could Han Fei not like the spiritual fruit in the level 3 fishery? Half an hour later, somewhere in the land of starfish, a depressed voice said, "Who is robbing my spiritual energy?" In another place in the land of starfish, Yang Ryun was trapped here. She was almost annoyed to death by this array. Her records didn't say that there were so many arrays in this place. She wondered if she had gone the wrong way. However, when she saw the starfish all over the ground, she knew she was right. But where did so many formation seals come from? Not only the land of starfish, but a large spirit-gathering array could gather spiritual energy in a wide range and could be detected in many places. Above the abyss of the worm sea, 8 lotus fish were carrying a person to the other side of the abyss. Young master, there seems to be a change in the spiritual energy. The young man, with his eyes closed, stroking the lotus fish with one hand, responded faintly. In the ocean, it is normal for spiritual energy to fluctuate. What surprised me now is that Han Fei's speed is so fast. How could he surpass us by so much? On the lotus seat next to the young man, someone said, "Young Master Mu, That kid is very weird. It's hard to imagine that he can pass through the seaweed wall alone." The young man nodded slightly. Of course. If Han Fei didn't have some means, how could he have snatched the sea token? Father said that he has a legendary contractual spiritual beast, which is even more commendable. Anyway, let's catch up with him first. Although the young man called Young Master Mu looked calm, his brows were slightly frowning. There were a lot of dangers along the way, especially that seaweed monster, which even tried to put a soul lock on him. If it weren't for everyone's joint efforts, it would have succeeded. However, even so, they lost 6 peak-level dangling fishers along the way. This was a big price. If something happened later, he wasn't sure whether he should chase after him or not. Of course, there were also benefits. That was, young Master Mu got a message from the seaweed monster that Han Fei had been here. Han Fei couldn't be happier at this moment. It had only been an hour, and he had absorbed 10,000 points of spiritual energy. If he could, he felt that he could cultivate here for 2 months, and then he would get 100 million points of spiritual energy. BM, BAM, BM. However, before Han Fei could finish his joy, the spiritual vortexes in the sea suddenly collapsed and were replaced by purple pillars of light. F*CK. Who ruined my good time? Han Fei suddenly got up, and what came at him was a huge starfish. The seawater suddenly became quiet. The man and the starfish stared at each other. They were both angry at first, but the scene turned awkward for a while. Han Fei said in surprise, "Master Hexagon Starfish." Chapter 353. Han Fei couldn't believe it all. He had never expected that he would meet the Hexagon Starfish again one day. At this moment, the surrounding barriers were crawling with all kinds of starfish, crabs, and snails. However, time seemed to stand still, and the Hexagon Starfish's 6 big eyes widened, staring at Han Fei in shock. "You've mistaken me for a starfish." The Hexagon Starfish was a little panicked. "I've only been released for 2 years. Why did I meet this evil human again?" Seeing that the Hexagon Starfish was about to run, Han Fei shivered and quickly took out the white stone that he had never crushed before. Han Fei hurriedly said to the Hexagon Starfish via voice transmission, "Master Hexagon, if you want to run, I'll crush it." Han Fei was amused. "I used to be a fishing master, and I couldn't react to you when you ran fast. Now I'm a dangling fisher. I guarantee that I can crush this white stone before you can run more than 100 meters." Han Fei was glad that he didn't throw the stone. He couldn't help but sigh. "I can't give my essence blood to others in the future. Otherwise, if others crush me like this, I'll be miserable. Master Hexagon, long time no see. Let's talk." The Hexagon Starfish was about to cry. At this moment, he felt that his life was full of ups and downs. Wherever he went, he always met bad guys. However, his essence blood was in Han Fei's hands, so he didn't dare to run away. The Hexagon Starfish's body began to gradually shrink until it became the size of a pot lid, and then it floated in front of Han Fei. "Human, how did you grow so fast?" The Hexagon Starfish was speechless. It's only been 2 years, and Han Fei has already become a dangling fisher? Han Fei said telepathically with a smile. "Yes, human beings have always been fast in their training." "Huh, Master Hexagon, haven't you also broken through to level 40? In Han Fei's eyes, the data of the Hexagon Starfish at this moment showed that it was level 42. Han Fei remembered that when he first met this guy, it was only level 36. However, Han Fei was not particularly surprised. After all, in the ordinary fishery, all kinds of resources and level 3 fisheries were incomparable. At that time, the Hexagon Starfish was on the verge of death. Now this guy looked to be in great shape. Han Fei looked around and said, "Master Hexagon Starfish, did you set up these arrays?" The Hexagon Starfish's 6 big eyes were full of helplessness. "I've been locked up for 300 years, and half of my spiritual energy has been taken away by you. I just want to absorb some spiritual energy. It hasn't even been a year. Why are you here again?" Han Fei was helpless. Hey. Master Hexagon Starfish, let's be clear. I was really just passing by. I was going to the depths of the seaborne prairie. I didn't expect to run into you. The hexagon starfish said quickly, then you go. I'll open a way for you. Hurry up and go. Business is more important. Han Fei was slightly taken aback. After 2 years, Master Hexagon Starfish had become smarter. She wasn't as silly as she was when they first met. Han Fei suddenly remembered what the seaweed monster said. It was said that a few years ago, there was an aura similar to his that drilled through the seaweed wall. Could it be Mr. Hexagon Starfish? Han Fei couldn't help but ask tentatively. Mr. Hexagon Starfish, did you walk on the seaweed wall when you came here? It's full of seaweeds, and there seems to be a talking seaweed. The Hexagon Starfish was still thinking about how to let Han Fei leave. Hearing Han Fei's words, he didn't take it seriously and just hummed. That grass is very bad. It tried to catch me. Fortunately, I ran fast or I would have been caught by it. Han Fei couldn't help but be surprised. That's true. At the same time, he was also a little surprised. What was the Hexagon Starfish's level a few years ago? He shouldn't have exceeded level 40. In this case, this Mr. Hexagon Starfish was still very powerful. It was equivalent to escaping from the seaweed monster when it was still a dangling fisher. Han Fei immediately thought of something. In terms of arrays, Mr. Hexagon Starfish was definitely a potential master. He had many advantages, such as being stupid and rich, a master of arrays, and good at escaping. Most importantly, Han Fei didn't believe that the Hexagon Starfish didn't come to the seaborne prairie to hunt for treasures. This guy was greedy for treasures. How could he come without any benefits? Han Fei even suspected that the Hexagon Starfish came here to hunt for treasures and then accidentally found the land of starfish. He felt that there was not only abundant spiritual energy, but also many of his own kind here, so he could cultivate for a while. Han Fei couldn't help but step forward and grab one of the Hexagon Starfish's tentacles. When he was about to speak, he saw the Hexagon Starfish fly dozens of meters away with a swish. The Hexagon Starfish's 6 big eyes were full of vigilance. What do you want? Han Fei smiled bitterly. Mr. Hexagon Starfish, I just want to catch up with you. Why are you hiding? The Hexagon Starfish spun and kept a distance from Han Fei. If you want to say something, just stand there. I won't give you the treasure. Han Fei was speechless. Who wants the treasure from you? I promise I won't ask you for the treasure. Hearing that Han Fei didn't want the treasure, the Hexagon Starfish immediately relaxed and stopped spinning, floating in the sea, waiting for Han Fei to speak. Han Fei said with a smile, Mr. Hexagon Starfish, in the depths of the jungle, there's a big red trunk. Do you know that? The Hexagon Starfish's 6 eyes all constricted. That place is dangerous. Han Fei said in surprise. So, you've already been there? The Hexagon Starfish waved his tentacles and said, I just want to have a look, but there are a lot of annoying fish there, and they're also very bad. Fish? Han Fei was slightly taken aback. The Hexagon Starfish used a lot and very bad. This at least showed that there was a very powerful school of fish in the big red trunk forest, so powerful that even the Hexagon Starfish dared not to offend them easily. Han Fei asked again, Do you know what fish are they? The Hexagon Starfish's big eyes rolled, and he said, I don't know. I haven't seen them. They hide in the middle and can control those trees. They can control trees? Han Fei was a little surprised. Fish that can control trees? Han Fei had seen them before. Wasn't the Millennium Snapper able to control all kinds of spiritual plants? Han Fei asked, Sir, can those fish sing? The Hexagon Starfish was puzzled. What is singing? BM, BM, BM. Just when Han Fei was about to explain, a huge blue electric arc flashed directly in the distant sea. As the electric arc passed, almost in the blink of an eye, hundreds of small arrays were directly blown up. Both Han Fei and the Hexagon Starfish were shocked. The Hexagon Starfish hummed, Why did you bring so many people here? Han Fei blinked his eyes. I didn't bring anyone. Can you perceive them? The Hexagon Starfish stared at Han Fei. Those people broke into my spirit absorption array. They are so powerful. I can't beat them. Enough talking. I'm going to run. The Hexagon Starfish was about to run, only to find that his tentacles had been grabbed by Han Fei. Han Fei said with a black face, If you run, I'll crush your life essence blood. First, tell me how many people are there? How strong are they? The hexagon starfish froze. He was in danger again. Helplessly, he could only droop his tentacles and say, there seem to be 7 or 8 people, and they seem to be stronger than you. Shoot. These damn guys, how do they come so fast? Han Fei's face changed greatly. Mr. Hexagon Starfish, you're so good at setting up arrays. Do you know how to kill arrays? The hexagon starfish was stunned. I don't. Starfish don't kill people. Han Fei vomited blood. Starfish don't kill people? You know how to seal arrays, but you don't know how to kill arrays? Han Fei was speechless. He didn't know how those Sun family people broke hundreds of arrays at once. Their speed was dozens of times faster than his own. If they blew them up a few times, the entire sealing array set up by the hexagon starfish would be weakened. At that time, it would be even more impossible to stop them. Han Fei gritted his teeth. Mr. Hexagon Starfish, wait a minute. I'll set up a killing array. If you dare to leave, I'll crush your life essence blood immediately. The hexagon starfish's eyes rolled, and he couldn't wait to slap Han Fei to death with his tentacles. It could only blame itself for having such a rough life, always encountering these bastards. Han Fei used the spirit gathering array in front of him as the center of the array and began to draw quickly. In fact, he didn't know any killing arrays at all. When he got the spirit gathering scripture, he only learned one array from beginning to end, which was the spirit gathering array. As for the other small arrays, he was prepared to use them to save his life at the right time and didn't study them seriously. The killing arrays were complicated and mysterious, one level more difficult than the spirit gathering array. The difficulty of carving a perfect killing array was practically the most difficult of all array formations. Even if Han Fei wanted to learn it, he didn't have the time, and what Han Fei knew was exactly the simplest spirit explosion array. To put it bluntly, it was equivalent to burying a large landmine on the spot. Then, when the enemy accidentally stepped on it, it would explode. The crux of the problem was that this spiritual array was too simple. The hexagon starfish said, "You can't do it. You'll be easily discovered." Han Fei was speechless. "Come on, do it. I'm going to cover it with a concealment array. Do you want to do it?" Chapter 354. Although the hexagon starfish looked silly, it wasn't really stupid. If it was left here by Han Fei, who knew if it would be caught by others later? In any case, it couldn't beat those people. The hexagon starfish said, "Shall I disguise the eye of the array for you?" Han Fei's hand that was setting up the array suddenly paused, and the half-drawn concealment array collapsed. Han Fei couldn't help but look at the hexagon starfish up and down in shock. "You're right." Immediately, Han Fei was overjoyed and said, "Hurry up, Master Hexagon, hurry up. When it's done, let's run." The hexagon starfish hummed. "Can I run by myself?" Han Fei rolled his eyes. "What are you thinking? At this point, you're still thinking of running away by yourself? What do you think I am?" Han Fei smiled and said, "Master Hexagon, I'm here for treasure hunting this time. Don't you like shiny things? Why don't we form a treasure hunting alliance? When the time comes, I'll give you all the shiny things. Give me all the non-shiny things. How about that?" The hexagon starfish's eyes were still rolling. Han Fei was speechless. "Stop rolling. If it were someone else, they could take your blood essence and sign a contract with you. Believe it or not, I'll stay in the level 3 fishery for a year. In this year, we'll form a treasure hunting alliance. In this year, we'll form a treasure hunting alliance. 1 year later, I'll return your blood essence to you. How about that?" "Really?" Rumble, 100 kilometers away, another electric arc crossed the sky. The ceiling formation was like a piece of paper, exploding with a pong-pong. Han Fei couldn't care less and directly grabbed the hexagon starfish's tentacles. "Hurry up and set up the array. Otherwise, we'll both die later. 8 peak-level dangling fishers, not to mention me. Even if we find another mutant creature, we still can't beat them." The hexagon starfish also began to panic. Those people were indeed coming too fast. If the electric arc came 2 or 3 more times, the sealing array it set in the land of starfish will become weaker and weaker. At that time, It wouldn't be able to resist a casual blow from these people at all. The 6 tentacles of the hexagon starfish glowed with purple light. Like lasers, the tentacles quickly swept out circles of lines on the ground. Han Fei found it odd. This array was quite different from the one in the spirit-gathering scripture. But in terms of complexity, it was no simpler than the spirit-gathering scripture. Immediately, Han Fei guessed that this guy must have found a book on arrays from a treasure hunt, didn't he? An array book that is at least comparable to the spirit-gathering scripture? After a while, the pseudo-eye of the array was formed, and the spirit-gathering array that Han Fei had set up before was directly covered. However, the spiritual energy here was still surging like a dragon. Han Fei gritted his teeth, threw out a blue sea wandering dragon dagger, and stabbed it into the soil under the eye of the array. Master Hexagon Starfish, throw hundreds of thousands of points of spiritual energy here and blow them up later. The Hexagon Starfish's tentacles slapped the seawater. I don't have any spiritual energy. I've used all my spiritual energy to advance. Han Fei grabbed the white stone. I've lost another 50,000 points of spiritual energy with a spiritual weapon. You should have lost 100,000 points of spiritual energy, right? A spirit-gathering array can be drawn at any time. 100,000 points of spiritual energy is nothing. We have plenty of spiritual energy in the future. With that said, Han Fei really threw out 50,000 points of spiritual energy, which stunned the Hexagon Starfish. When did Han Fei become so generous? It rolled its big eyes for a long time and finally spat out 100,000 points of spiritual energy. As Han Fei said, his life essence blood was still in Han Fei's hands now. Those people were obviously Han Fei's enemies. If he didn't blow them up now, he wouldn't be able to defeat them when they caught up. At that time, he wouldn't even have a place to run. However, just after the Hexagon Starfish threw out the spiritual energy, he said in surprise, "When did humans store so much spiritual energy?" Han Fei said calmly, "I have a sea-swallowing seashell. There's a spiritual spring in it." The Hexagon Starfish pondered for a while and felt that something was wrong. When the third electric arc lit up, Han Fei and the Hexagon Starfish's faces changed drastically at the same time. Because the array had been set up, the spiritual energy here was the densest, and the Sun family had come to this place. Han Fei jumped on the back of the Hexagon Starfish and said, "Master Hexagon Starfish, run." The Hexagon Starfish, "Can you come down?" Han Fei said, "This is your home. You can run fast. I'm not heavy." The Hexagon Starfish, Han Fei didn't care how big the shadow in the Hexagon Starfish's heart was. Anyway, he had found such a super laborer, so he might as well make use of it. After about the time it took for a stick of incense to burn, another electric arc struck. The people of the Sun family finally came to the place where the fake array eye was. "Young master, we found the array eye." 2 subordinates hurried forward and bombarded the barrier. The seal roared and the ripples shook. Sun Mu frowned slightly and looked at the people around him. Why is the spiritual energy in the seal array so dense? Someone next to him said thoughtfully, "Young master, the sea grassland is also dangerous." Along the way, except for the lotus fish section, it was full of dangers. These tens of thousands of layers of restrictions blocking the way. I'm afraid they also require spiritual energy to operate. Sun Mu nodded, but he frowned and asked, "Han Fei is just a junior dangling fisher. How can he go all the way? Even this seal array can't stop him?" The people next to him choked and thought, "We want to know too. This guy is so weird." So far, nearly 10 peak-level dangling fishers have been killed by him. It was impossible to say that he didn't have any tricks up his sleeve. Gotcha! At the moment when the fake array was broken, Sun Mu felt a sharp pain in his back and shouted, "Retreat." As he spoke, he threw his hook at the speed of lightning, directly hooking one of the 2 people in front of him who was breaking the formation back. Rumble, bow the sound echoed through the bottom of the sea, shaking everything within hundreds of kilometers, and huge waves swept in an instant. Sun Mu and the others had only retreated a few hundred meters when the billowing waves had already rolled over. The huge shockwave directly tore one of the two people who had broken the formation into pieces. "Protect the young master. Get out of my way." In an instant, Sun Mu took off a jade pendant from his waist and crushed it. A flood dragon phantom blocked in front of him in the blink of an eye. The flood dragon roared angrily for more than 100 seconds, blocking the terrifying boom. Huh. Of course, even so, Sun Mu vomited blood. "Young master." A group of peak-level dangling fishers gathered around and guarded in front of Sun Mu. The aftermath of the boom. Coughing up a mouthful of blood, Sun Mu calmly wiped the blood stains from the corner of his mouth and even slightly curled up the corners of his mouth. He murmured, "Historically, those who can get the sea token are all heavenly talents. Now it seems that Han Fei is really extraordinary. Interesting. I like to see what other tricks he has up his sleeves." Although one of his subordinates was killed, Sun Mu seemed to turn a blind eye to it. If a fool dies, then so be it. Now, his fighting spirit had been aroused by Han Fei. At this moment, Han Fei was sitting on the back of the hexagon starfish, feeling the vibration of the sea, and couldn't help asking, "Master Hexagon, how many people do you think we killed? With so much spiritual energy and my spiritual weapon, we should be able to kill at least 3 or 4 people, right?" The hexagon starfish's 6 big eyes were still rolling, and it sensed for a while. "I can't feel it. The formation there is seriously damaged. If it was blown up, several people should have died." Han Fei thought his method was brilliant and couldn't help but say with joy, "Okay, Master Hexagon, let's go deeper. Let me tell you, it's useless to cultivate hard. You have to find opportunities. You are a sea creature, so you should know better than me." The hexagon starfish buzzed. "Human beings cultivate too fast, which is harmful to their foundation. Only by accumulating strength over time can they become the spirit of heaven. This is also why sea creatures of the same level are often stronger than humans of the same level." Han Fei was taken aback and said in surprise, "Really? I don't think any sea creature of the same level is stronger than me." The hexagon starfish's big eyes tilted, and he didn't want to talk to Han Fei anymore. Suddenly, the hexagon starfish's heart did a flip. "Human, there's your kind down there." "Huh? My kind? Where?" Han Fei flashed and appeared next to the hexagon starfish, but he didn't see anyone for a long time. Immediately, he spread out his perception. A human-shaped ripple appeared, followed by a familiar face in the water. Seeing this person, Han Fei was furious. "It's you? Female thief. You've tricked me several times in a row. I won't listen to a word you say today." The person hiding down there was none other than Yang Ruiyun. Yang Ruiyun was also puzzled. Did Han Fei really pass through the Seaweed City wall? How was it possible? It took her almost 50 flash stones before she was teleported out of the wall of seaweed by accident. And she only gave Han Fei 2 flash stones. At this moment, Han Fei was holding the blue sea wandering dragon bow and condensing spiritual energy into an arrow. He didn't intend to say another word to this woman, in case he was tricked again. It turned out that although Han Fei had a lot of opportunities, he was not so smart, especially when he met a cunning woman like Yang Ruiyun. He had suffered losses more than once or twice. Just at the moment when Han Fei was about to shoot the arrow, a fish skin map appeared in Yang Ruiyun's hand. Han Fei's momentum came to an abrupt halt. Although he was still glaring at Yang Ruiyun fiercely, he didn't shoot the arrow in his hand. Yang Ruiyun casually threw the fish skin map to Han Fei. Chapter 355. How could Han Fei let go of the map? Immediately, Han Fei took the fish skin map. It was a map of a dangerous treasure trove near the Seaborn Prairie. He had never been there. Han Fei took out Old Bai's fish skin map and compared it with the map. Although he didn't find this place, there was a small underwater mountain range there. Looking at the texture of the fish skin, Han Fei was almost convinced. However, Han Fei still frowned. "How do I know this map is real? Even if it is, do you think I'll let you go?" Yang Ruiyun glanced at the big starfish next to Han Fei and didn't think much of it, thinking that it was Han Fei's contractual spiritual beast. Although she was surprised that Han Fei had 3 contractual spiritual beasts, it was not unprecedented, so she didn't take it seriously. Yang Ryun said calmly. The first time we met was an accident. The second time we met, I lured everyone on the ghost boat to kill you. I owe you one. The third time we met in the Seabourn Prairie, which was another accident. However, you helped me once, so I owe you one more time. As for the seaweed wall, you can't blame me. I had to save myself at the critical moment. Besides, I gave you 2 flash stones, so you owe me one. Han Fei was so angry that he laughed. Bullsh asterisk T, who cleared the way for you. Without me, could you have resisted the assassination of the 2 advance hunters? Do I owe you anything? I owe you an ironhead fish. Yang Ryun said calmly. No matter what you think, I didn't set you up on purpose. How can you blame me for that? Han Fei choked. No, you knew the existence of the seaweed wall and the pit of dry leaf worms, and you knew that it was dangerous. So, you prepared a lot of flash stones for yourself and tricked me into treasure hunting with you. Yang Royan took a deep look at Han Fei. Make it clear. First of all, I didn't trick you into treasure hunting with me, but you volunteered to join me. Han Fei narrowed his eyes. Would I have come with you if you had told me the truth? Yang Royan nodded. You would have. Han Fei choked again. Damn it. Why did I ask such a stupid question? Yang Royan smiled. Just now, there was a huge explosion in the sea. I could feel the vibration even from here. Come to think of it, if you were alone, there was no need to make such a big commotion. So, those enemies of yours are chasing after you? It means that you were probably forced to enter the Seabourn Prairie. There are pursuers behind you. Even if the front is dangerous, what can you do? Han Fei's anger subsided. This woman was really smart. How about she guess correctly? If Han Fei was an unreasonable person, he would have killed Yang Ruyan already. After all, in a world full of cultivators, there was no need for a reason to kill. However, in reality, not everyone could do this. Most people had their own principles. He couldn't bring himself to kill someone for no reason. However, Han Fei was not so easy to deal with. He said with a cold face, Even so, I'll let you fool me this once. You also owe me twice. You should repay me with your life. Yang Ryun raised her head and looked at Han Fei solemnly. The fish skin in your hand was drawn by my father. After 9 years, I just need to check the texture of the fish skin. Does that count? Han Fei nodded reluctantly. After all, it was a treasure trove, so it should be counted as one. Yang Ryun said again, I know you have been asking about the abyssal chasm before. With that, Yang Ryun threw half a book to Han Fei again. Han Fei took it and took a look. The words exploration notes of the abyssal chasm were written on it. Han Fei's pupils constricted. He didn't have time to read it, but he still asked, why only half? Yang Ryun said calmly, I have the other half. When I leave this place and ensure my safety, I can give you the other half. Han Fei asked, why do you have things that others don't? Yang Ryun said calmly, do you know how many people die in this fishery every day? To tell you the truth, the relevant notes of the abyssal chasm are actually not valuable. However, some things can't be obtained with money. At least on the dragon boat, you can't get a single one. Han Fei frowned. Where did this woman come from? Yang Ryun seemed to know what Han Fei was thinking, so she said, I shouldn't have anything to do with you. However, due to a free combination of factors, they ended up on the same path. The level 3 fishery is not so simple, and neither is the dragon boat. The world you and I have seen is too shallow. Han Fei waved his hand. Don't talk so much to me. I can kill you and get the other half. Hey, if you don't give it to me, it doesn't matter. I'll go my own way and you go your own way. Bye. Heh, it doesn't matter if you don't give it to me. I'll walk my own path and you can walk yours. Bye. Hey, if you don't give it to me, it doesn't matter. I'll go my own way and you go your own way. Bye. Han Fei paused, braked quickly, and looked back at Yang Ryun. Yang Ryun looked at Han Fei seriously. If I can't do it, you can kill me. Yang Ryun looked at Han Fei seriously. If I can't do it, you can do whatever you want of me. Han Fei knew that Yang Ryun was definitely not a good person. Han Fei knew that Yang Ryun was definitely not a good person. But this woman seemed to be too smart. Just because she said that she could help him get rid of them, Han Fei couldn't underestimate her. Han Fei felt that it was quite possible. If he were just an ordinary person and followed Yang Ruoyun into the seaborne prairie, wouldn't he? Since she could trick him, it wouldn't be a problem to trick the Sun family as well. The hexagon starfish, who had been silent, rolled its 6 big eyes and suddenly said, "You don't seem to be able to out-talk her." Han Fei said angrily, "I can't out-talk her. I was just giving in to her. Otherwise, I could have killed her with 2 slaps." Yang Ruiyun's eyes widened. This starfish can talk. Han Fei suddenly realized that the hexagon starfish, just like the stone spirit turtle, could communicate telepathically, but he wasn't the only one who could hear it. Han Fei couldn't help but interrupt. "Who cares if it can talk or not? Come up. If anything goes wrong this time, I'll really chop you up." Yang Ruiyun didn't take Han Fei's words seriously, but looked at the hexagon starfish in shock. A sea creature that could talk? She had met a sea creature that could talk twice in her life, both on this day. While following Han Fei, Yang Ruiyun stared at the hexagon starfish and asked, "Is this the one on the seaweed wall?" Han Fei shook his head. "Of course not. How can Master Hexagon Starfish be the same as that damn seaweed? I'll get even with that seaweed sooner or later." The hexagon starfish spoke again. "You can't beat it," Han Fei said gloomily. "Master Hexagon Starfish, shut up. Even if I can't beat it, I still have you." The hexagon starfish's big eyes constricted. "I can't beat it either. Starfish don't fight unless I fight it." Sitting on the starfish's back, Yang Ruiyun was full of curiosity. Is this big starfish really a contractual spiritual beast? She had never heard of anyone's contractual spiritual beast that could talk. She couldn't help but look at Han Fei. Who is this guy? Han Fei, on the other hand, felt great at this moment. He had to admit that it felt great not to swim by himself. In particular, the hexagon starfish's speed was beyond his imagination. At full speed, he might have to attach little gold to him to keep up with it. On the way, Han Fei looked at Yang Ruiyun solemnly and emphasized, "You and I are purely cooperating, but it doesn't mean that you can leave this time. Trust me, from now on, you won't have a chance to crush the flash stone. If you do anything, I'll take action." Yang Ruiyun said expressionlessly, "Our destination is the same, the central area of the seaborne prairie. In that case, why should I run away?" Han Fei didn't believe Yang Ruiyun at all and asked straightforwardly, "What's in the central area? I'm not completely ignorant. Think carefully before you speak." Yang Ruiyun pondered for a moment. The big red trunk forest. It said that at the center of the seaborne prairie, there's a very large big red trunk that has lived for countless years. What else? Yang Ruiyun glanced at Han Fei. "I wonder if you've ever heard of a fish called the Millennium Snapper?" Han Fei tilted his head. "So what if I have? So what if I haven't?" Sadness appeared in Yang Ruiyun's eyes. The Millennium Snapper is a fish that can bewitch people and control spiritual plants. It said that the sound they make is the most beautiful sound in the sea. Of course, Han Fei knew that. He also knew that the Millennium Snapper was almost immortal in areas rich in spiritual plants, unless it was completely strangled. Seeing Han Fei's indifference, Yang Ruiyun's eyes narrowed. "You know about it?" Han Fei's lips curled. "Are you surprised? What's the relationship between the big red trunk and the Millennium Snapper? Why are you still going when it's so dangerous?" Yang Ruiyun shook her head. "That's none of your business. I have my own purpose. I'm different from you. You're here for treasures. You're here for treasures and to grow stronger. I'm here for answers. 32 members of the Yang family have died here. There's no one left in my generation. I have to come here as well." Han Fei rolled his eyes. "Do you think I'm stupid? If your family died here, would you still come here to die?" Yang Ruiyun said, "You geniuses won't understand. Without generations of people exploring the fishery, who would dare to come to the level 3 level? The level 3 fishery is full of unknown places." Han Fei scoffed at Yang Ruiyun's words. He didn't believe it. "Do you think everyone in your family is a scientist, exploring the mysteries of the ocean?" Yang Ruiyun didn't care about Han Fei's attitude at all. She just stared ahead and said leisurely, "Every year, the dragon boats send a large number of people to these places that are almost hopeless in others' eyes. Among them, the places with the most deaths were naturally the most dangerous. saying there are places in the level 3 fishery where few people can return alive. The central area of the Seaborn Prairie is one of them. Han Fei asked in confusion. Do they send a lot of people every year? Yang Ruoyu nodded. It should be said that they would send people every time they passed by. Don't think that you didn't meet many people on the way. That's because the route is different. Some people might have entered from other places. Han Fei was surprised. Even if you want to die? Yang Ruoyu nodded again. Yes. Suddenly, Han Fei thought of something. What about the experts on the dragon boats? What about the hidden fishers? What about the hanging fishers? Yang Ruoyun said, maybe they know, maybe they don't. A hidden fisher once died here. Since then, no experts have come here. Han Fei sneered. Then why do they keep sending dangling fishers to die? Yang Ruoyun said casually, you don't understand the darkness of this world. Some secrets are more important than human lives. Chapter 356. Yang Ruoyun's words made Han Fei start to doubt his life. As far as he knew, there were many dangerous places in the level 3 fishery. There were many dangerous places in the level 3 fishery, but there were still people coming to explore. However, there were still people who came to explore. Could it be that they were all idiots? The hexagon starfish said gloomily, there's nothing there. It was just some annoying trees and fishes. As for the big tree you're talking about, only the fruits on the tree are delicious. That's all. Yang Ruoyun was surprised. Have you been there? Han Fei was also speechless. Master Hexagon, have you ever been there? The hexagon starfish hummed. I wanted to dig stones before, and then I was picked up by those fish. Looking at its huge size, Han Fei was speechless. How big must a fish be to pick you up? Then wouldn't I be smaller if I went under the tree to dig stones? Han Fei. Yang Ruoyun was shocked and quickly asked Han Fei via voice transmission, isn't this your contractual spiritual beast? The hexagon starfish hummed, of course not. I am a free starfish. Han Fei rolled his eyes at Yang Ruoyun and said, let me tell you a truth. Those with more eyes have stronger spiritual power. Those with stronger spiritual power can hear other people's private voice transmissions. Yang Ruoyun pursed her lips but didn't care. Instead, she looked at the hexagon starfish and asked, Senior, have you eaten the fruits on that tree? The hexagon starfish's big eyes rolled around, and Han Fei was speechless. He didn't know how this starfish could grow eyes. Besides, the eyeballs could move freely. 6 eyes, and the eyeballs could be in 6 directions. All that was left was for them to rotate 360 degrees freely. The hexagon starfish said, it's my fault. I was digging the stones and saw the fruits on the tree shining, so I ran over and ate one. Then I was picked up by the fish. Han Fei looked at Yang Ruoyun and asked, what's wrong with the fruit? Han Fei clearly remembered one thing, which was that the soul shadow he met last time told him not to eat the fruit and reminded him several times. Not only was the fruit inedible, but the fish was also inedible. At that time, Han Fei found it strange. When he saw the Millennium Snapper, the data showed that it was edible. Not only could it be eaten, but could also permanently enhance the body's recovery ability several times. Several times. Han Fei was very tempted at the thought of it. If he hadn't subdued the Millennium Snapper, it might have been in his stomach by now. Moreover, the seaweed monster also wanted fruits. Could it be the same kind of fruit? But hadn't the hexagon starfish eaten it before? Han Fei asked telepathically, Master Hexagon Starfish, what's your reaction after eating the fruit? The hexagon starfish muttered, no response. Oh, I broke through. Han Fei. Yang Ruoyun seemed to be deep in thought, and no one knew what she was thinking about. But Han Fei didn't care. In his field of vision, a faint red color had appeared. We're here, the great red trunk forest. Han Fei excitedly stood up from the back of the hexagon starfish. Yang Ruoyun also stood up. She looked in the direction of the big red trunk, and then at Han Fei. Since you know about the big red trunk, you should know that its leaves emit scorching energy. Han Fei said disdainfully. What are you afraid of? The Seaborn Prairie is so far away, and I've made it all the way here. Do you think I'm scared of a few leaves? Yang Ruoyun did not say anything. In her opinion, Han Fei was also mysterious. After all, not everyone was qualified to be hunted by so many strong masters. And not everyone could be so friendly with a talking starfish. It was not an ordinary method to use a non-contractual spiritual beast as a contractual spiritual beast, the hexagon starfish said. What do you want to do later? I'm going to dig stones. Han Fei said with a smile. Master hexagon starfish, remember not to go far. If it's more than a kilometer, I'll crush it. The hexagon starfish closed its 6 eyes. It was so angry that it didn't want to open them anymore. It hummed and didn't speak. In front of the big red trunk forest, vaguely, Han Fei seemed to hear singing coming from the depths of the forest. Yang Rian looked extremely serious. The Millennium Snapper. The hexagon starfish began to shrink and became the size of a palm in the blink of an eye. Then, Han Fei saw this guy drill into the ground. In his perception, this guy had already drilled into the big red trunk forest. Han Fei said, Master, slow down. Be careful not to be bitten out again. Han Fei waved his hand with a smile, and 30 blue sea wandering dragon daggers surrounded him, and the surrounding water temperature dropped sharply. Yang Rian could even see the blue sea wandering dragon daggers emitting cold air. Han Fei shrugged. I said I'm not afraid. Ice and fire are incompatible. Let's see which is more powerful, the leaves or my daggers. Yang Rian almost rolled her eyes. 30 spiritual weapons to protect herself? How rich! She took out a spiritual pill from her swallowing seashell. Han Fei glanced at it, only to find that the pill was also extremely cold. It seemed that Yang Rian had made a lot of preparations to come here. Just like this, the two of them entered the big red trunk forest one after the other. When they stepped into this forest, the sand on the ground began to shake slightly. The red sword-shaped leaves on the ground became darker and redder, and each leaf emitted steaming heat. Above their heads, red leaves fell and poured down like strands of red catkins, making this water area extremely red. Han Fei had experienced it once, so he moved forward without any scruples. Even though the red leaves were like swords, Han Fei could still maintain his composure. Without the control of the Millennium Snapper, the leaves at this moment were not as crazy as the last time. Even so, Han Fei's spiritual energy protective cover had been broken twice. And Yang Ruoyun was even weirder. There was no telling what pill she had taken, but her whole body was as cold as a 1,000-year-old jade. The red leaves actually swept past her body one after another. However, in Han Fei's view, Yang Ruoyun was not in a good state. That pill could avoid the red leaves, but it probably also had a huge side effect. At this moment, Yang Ruoyun's face was pale, and her footsteps were a little unsteady. Wherever her feet passed, ice marks were left. Han Fei looked at Yang Ruoyun strangely. Your body can't bear that pill. How long can you hold on like this? Yang Ruoyun's lips trembled, and her eyes stared ahead as if she were talking to the forest. She said, if it's not for cultivation, it doesn't matter whether I can hold on or not. Han Fei didn't understand what this woman was saying, but from the moment she entered this forest of big red trunk, she seemed to have stopped cherishing her life. Han Fei snorted. When will you give me the remaining half of the exploration of the abyssal chasm? Yang Ruoyun said expressionlessly. When we reach the real big red trunk, Han Fei grinned. The big red trunk is just a tree after all. It's those Millennium Snappers that are powerful. Yang Ruoyun said as she walked. Do you know how many people are around here? Han Fei asked in surprise. Huh? Where are they from? Yang Ruoyun smiled coldly. I told you before that there are many people coming here. Although the road is dangerous, it can't stop countless treasure hunters. He hasn't appeared yet because he's waiting. Seeing that his spiritual energy protective cover had been broken, Han Fei activated it again and asked, waiting for what? Yang Ruoyun sped up, and Han Fei followed the woman closely in case she played any tricks. Yang Ruoyun said, waiting for the singing. On the big red trunk in the center, there will be countless Millennium Snappers singing an unparalleled melody. Those who enter the forest at that time will get an opportunity. Han Fei frowned tightly. Nonsense. You said that all the people who come here are dead. Yang Ruyun said, I didn't tell you the whole story. It's just that people know that they are all dead. There were quite a few people who could walk out. However, the memory of this day will be lost, as if they had never come here. Han Fei's eyes suddenly narrowed. Memory loss? No, then how do you know? Yang Ruyun glanced at Han Fei with a smile. There are always one or two exceptions. Yang Ruyun didn't continue, but just sped up. Han Fei frowned. He had a bad feeling. This damn place seems to be hiding a big secret. What happened next also confirmed Han Fei's feeling. As he sped up, there were more and more red leaves. Although the seawater was almost boiling, the power of the leaves didn't increase. On the way, he didn't encounter a single fish, shrimp, or crab, but flowers and plants everywhere in the big red trunk. After only half an hour, Han Fei finally saw the so-called largest big red trunk. Before Han Fei approached it, the branches and leaves that extended out were already more than 500 meters long. His fiery red eyes were as dazzling as the sun set. When the seawater blew by, the sword leaves drifted with the waves and then turned into a burning flame. After landing, they disappeared without a trace. Yang Ruyun said casually, "This is called falling flame red. It's the original appearance of the big red trunk." Han Fei looked up and was shocked. How tall is it? Yang Ruyun suddenly fell on her knees and crossed her hands against her chest. Do you know why the deeper you go into the seaborne grassland, the more you can't go up from the surface of the sea or from the water? Chapter 357. Yang Ruyun bowed to the big red trunk in front of her. After bowing once, she slowly said, "Because the sea you see might not be the real sea." Han Fei was confused. "Speak human language." Yang Ruyun bowed to the big red trunk again, and then said, "In this place the surface and the water are not connected." Not connected? Han Fei was shocked. How could it not be connected? Wasn't this underwater in the seaborne prairie? Since it was underwater, why couldn't it be connected up and down? Yang Ruyun glanced at Han Fei. Then why didn't you come in from the middle? Han Fei was stunned. I was afraid that someone would chase me. Yang Ruyun said casually, "To be precise, the moment we entered the seaweed wall, the surface and the water were no longer connected. Nobody knew where they would end up if they swam upstream. But if we come down from above, we will go to the seaweed wall." This is an unsolved mystery. Han Fei was dumbfounded. What unsolved mystery? He felt that his brain was going to crash. There were all kinds of strange things in the world, but it couldn't be like this, could it? Yang Ruyun didn't explain anymore and bowed again. After bowing 3 times, she got up, and then a pair of bells and bracelets appeared in her hands. Jingle, jingle. When Yang Ruyun shook the bracelets on her hands, a map flew out of her and disappeared into the red leaves on the tree. Han Fei's face slightly changed, and he grabbed Yang Ruyun's neck. "What are you doing?" Immediately, Han Fei said telepathically, "Master Hexagon Starfish, come back. Let's go." However, Yang Ruyun shook her head casually. "It's too late. From the moment we entered the big red trunk forest, you couldn't get out." With a swish, Han Fei put a blue sea wandering dragon dagger on Yang Ruyun's neck and drew a blood mark. "Make yourself clear." Yang Ruyun ignored the dagger on her neck and continued to cross her hands, shaking the bells and making crisp sounds. Yang Ruyun said, "You can kill me, but you'd better hear me out. In a moment, the Millennium Snappers will come out. Those who have been hiding outside will also come in. Today, everything that was about to happen here would stay here. Maybe you can go out in a day. I didn't lie to you, nor did I cheat you. You're very strong, so you should be able to endure it." Han Fei stared at Yang Ruyun. "What about you?" Han Fei had always felt that this woman was strange, especially when she was doing these strange things. He couldn't guess Yang Ruyun's goal at all, because there was no way to guess it. Yang Ruyun slowly put down her hands and stopped ringing the bell. Then, the first half of the book appeared. She said unhurriedly, "I've actually prepared this book on the dragon boat. At that time, I was going to invite you to kill those 2 people and lure you into the seaborne prairie with this notes on the exploration of the abyssal chasm. However, you had an accident, causing the plan to fall through. But I didn't expect to meet you again in the seaborne prairie. You and I are destined to meet. This second half is for you. Our fate ends here. Han Fei had mixed feelings at this moment. Yang Ruiyun was the weirdest person he had ever met. Not in terms of personality, but Han Fei felt that she might be a lunatic. Walala. At this moment, the branches of this super big red trunk began to shake. Countless sword-shaped red leaves began to fall, burning in the seawater one after another. The red leaves weren't targeting him, or they weren't targeting anything at all. They were just falling. Walala. Oh, in the seawater, a voice that seemed to come from the depths of the soul sounded. Ethereal, pure, and full of fairy. Han Fei's face changed greatly. He had seen what the Millennium Snapper was capable of. There was more than one here. If they went crazy and attacked him, he might have to enter Forge the Universe to avoid them. Master Hexagon Starfish, I'll give you 10 seconds to come back. If you don't come back, I'll make a stone. In the third second, Han Fei saw a palm-sized starfish emerging from the sand under his feet. The Hexagon Starfish said, I'm fine. They just need a shout. I've heard them several times. Can you stop threatening me with my essence blood? Han Fei snorted and said, It's fine for you, but not necessarily for me. From now on, we have to be together. Is there a safe place? Take me to a place to hide. Han Fei didn't think he was smart, but he was not stupid either. Yang Ruiyun, this crazy woman, was definitely up to no good. Han Fei felt that she didn't plan to go out alive. But he was here for treasure hunting, and he didn't feel safe to be caught in a weird thing. The Hexagon Starfish said, Don't hide. No one will notice you later. Yang Ruiyun nodded. Indeed, you don't have to hide. I'm not lying to you. So many peak-level dangling fishers fail to kill you. So they probably won't kill you this time either, but I'm not sure about those who are hunting you. Han Fei. Swish, swish, swish. Suddenly, Han Fei raised his head, only to see that above the big red trunk, one Millennium Snapper after another emerged from the red leaves and stayed outside the leaves, singing. At the trunk, a circle of Millennium Snappers also emerged. They surrounded the thick trunk and behaved very weirdly. Han Fei looked at Yang Ruiyun. What are they doing? Yang Ruiyun didn't hide it and said with a smile, They are communicating with the big red trunk. It's like some kind of ritual. It's the first time I've seen it. Suddenly, Han Fei tilted his head. 1,000 meters away, a figure appeared. The man glanced at Han Fei and Yang Ruiyun and swam to the other side, as if he didn't care about them at all. Then, after only a moment, Han Fei saw at least 7 or 8 people appear here. However, no one talked to Han Fei and the others. They didn't seem to know each other. They all found a place and waited quietly, hundreds of kilometers away from the big red trunk forest. Sun Mu and his team of 7 people were swimming quickly. Young Master Mu, the Millennium Snapper's singing has begun. Are we really going in? Sun Mu looked at the Red Sea in the distance and asked with a frown, Is this big red trunk forest really as evil as the legend says? I don't know what happened after I went in. One of his subordinates followed Sun Mu and said solemnly, Yes, young master, that big red trunk is weird. Anyone who's gone and has either lost all their memories or died inside. I've heard that some people have come out with news, but very few of them. Besides, they can't remember everything, only fragments. Sun Mu asked, Has the Sun family explored it? Yes. Sun Mu nodded. How many people lived and how many died? The subordinate said with a smile, Over the past hundreds of years, our Sun family has sent no less than 1,000 people here. In the past year, 12 people have reached here, of which 5 died. 1 went crazy, and 6 were unharmed. Among them, 3 of them have made great progress, and soon after they returned, they became hanging fishers. Sun Mu glanced at him sideways. Are you very proud? The subordinate's face immediately changed. I dare not, but the death rate is already very low. If it were intermediate or advanced dangling fishers, only 1 or 2 out of 10 would survive. Sun Mu snorted coldly. That's because the people sent by the family are all peak-level dangling fishers, who have the advantage in realm. However, the information is enough. Go in. Remember, don't look for opportunities, just see tokens. Yes, on the big red leaf, there were no less than 1,000 Millennium Snappers. And in the higher places, among the red leaves, There were at least thousands, or even tens of thousands of them that Han Fei couldn't see clearly. Their voices, which were not very uniform at first, quickly became uniform. It was as if a group of fairies were singing in the sky, and every melody was shocking. Han Fei had long been shocked, not because of the music, but because of the number of Millennium Snappers. Weren't they rare creatures? The Millennium Snapper was an exotic creature. How could there be thousands of them all of a sudden? If he threw them all into the demon purification gourd, what would he make out of them? Han Fei didn't dare to think about it. The hexagon starfish said, "It's time to scatter flowers." Han Fei. Puff! Suddenly, Han Fei saw a leaf burning and couldn't help but be a little surprised. Could leaves growing on trees also burn? But then, one red leaf after another began to burn. The speed was like pouring oil into a lamp trough. As long as a flame was ignited, the entire lamp trough would be ignited. However, this scene was much more spectacular than that of a lamp trough. On the outermost layer of such a huge tree, billions of red leaves were burning at the same time. In less than 10 breaths of time, the entire big red trunk had turned into an incomparably huge, burning tree of flames. Chapter 358. Squeak! La la la. The melody was gentle and moving, and the sound was pure and clear. More and more Millennium Snappers appeared. They hid in the flames and didn't dodge at all. Bam! Suddenly, a loud noise came from the tree. Immediately afterward, the giant flame tree bloomed like fireworks, and countless flames, like twinkling stars in the sky, suddenly covered the entire sea area above their heads. Looking at the countless flames above her head, Yang Ryun burst into tears and looked very pious. Han Fei was dumbfounded. Han Fei, on the other hand, found it weird. The flames were falling, overwhelming and unavoidable. Han Fei. Suddenly, Han Fei's expression changed, and he quickly rushed forward. The next moment, a long sword had cut the place where he had just stood. In front of Han Fei, there were 7 people. The leader was a young man, older than him, no more than 20 years old, with the strength of a peak-level dangling fisher. Han Fei looked at the people behind him and couldn't help cursing. How many people did these bastards send? Didn't the super torpedo that he and Master Hexagon Starfish set up kill them? The young man held the sword with one hand. On the sword, cold air was pressing, and a water-shaped green python was coiling around the sword. "My name is Sun Mu. You are qualified to know my name. After I kill you, I will bury you under this big red trunk. It's a very good grave," Sun Mu said to Han Fei with a smile, and then looked up at the sky. "Look how beautiful it is. Others can't get it, but you can always accompany them." Han Fei grabbed 2 blue sea-wandering dragon daggers and looked at Sun Mu coldly. "Thank you for your kindness, but I think the scenery here seems more suitable for you. If you die, I will bury you here. How about that?" Although he said so, Han Fei's face was extremely gloomy. According to his estimation, there shouldn't be so many people here. Could it be that none of these people were killed in places like the Seaweed City Wall? Did all of them come here? Han Fei said to the Hexagon Starfish via voice transmission, "Master Hexagon Starfish, do you have any arrays? Set up a few hundred of them to help me stop these people, okay?" The Hexagon Starfish naturally realized that it was not good. Although it wanted to escape, Han Fei obviously wouldn't allow it. The Hexagon Starfish said, "How can I set up arrays so quickly? Why don't you hold on a little longer, or hide a little longer? In a while, the fruit will come out." Speechless, Han Fei cursed telepathically. "Look at the time. Fruit? I'm about to lose my life. So how many fart fruits do I want?" Han Fei ran away. At this time, he didn't care whether Xiao Jin would be exposed or not. Didn't Yang Ruoyun say so? Everyone here today had no memory of what had happened. Since that was the case, he was not afraid of being exposed. With a swish, Han Fei jumped out. He spread his wings and rushed into the leaves of the big red tree. This was the safest way that Han Fei could think of. At this moment, the leaves and the Millennium Snappers didn't seem to be attacking people. If that was the case, he might be able to hide in the leaves for a while. Seeing Han Fei's move, everyone here was stunned. Is he an idiot? Running up a tree? How did you even think of that? Sun Mu stopped in his tracks. He looked at the person beside him and said, "You go." The man's face turned green. Just me? Although the big red trunk didn't seem dangerous. Who knew if there was any danger in the lush leaves? The man sighed slightly. "Just go. The order has been given. I have to go even if I have to die." With a swish, he also disappeared into the leaves. Rushing into the red leaves, Hanfei suddenly felt the billowing heat waves coming at him. His spiritual energy protective cover was directly burned to pieces. In just a few seconds, it was burned to pieces again. But Hanfei didn't care and kept rushing up. When he rushed to a height of 100 meters, he found a random tree trunk and stopped. And on the surface of his body, a layer of red leaves had already covered him. These red leaves were burning in a fire, which was extremely hot, making Hanfei completely turn into a man of fire at this moment. Hanfei's scalp went numb when he was burned. He seemed to feel the burning of the fish fire again. Even the degree of heat here was stronger than that of the fish fire. The skin on his body was shattering, his clothes had already been burned, and his hair couldn't resist the scorching fire. He became bald again. However, as Hanfei thought, no Millennium Snapper came to stop him. The big red trunk didn't seem to care about him and let him sit here. The man who chased after him, after entering the forest, ended up even worse than Hanfei. His spiritual energy protective cover, clothes, and hair were all burned in a few seconds. If it weren't for the cold stone in his hand, he would have been burned to death at this moment. Even so, the stone was losing its luster at a speed visible to the naked eye. After this man came in, he looked around, only to find that there was red everywhere. How could he find Hanfei? No, hurry up and go out. I'll just say that I lost him. The man quickly retreated. However, just as he was about to run out, he discovered that there was an invisible barrier blocking his way. "No, let me out." The man was shocked. He didn't expect that there was a seal on this tree. "Young master, help me." Outside, the faces of Sun Mu and the others suddenly changed. They also found the seal, and the figure of the man almost appeared. But he failed to walk out of the red leaves several times. Hanfei was a little stunned. Why is there still a seal? Sun Mu said to the people around him, "Attack together." The 6 of them attacked with all their strength. With a loud bang, a huge wave of fire spread out in the water. However, the seal was not damaged at all. Sun Mu's face darkened. He wanted the sea token, but if Hanfei was trapped on the tree, wouldn't this sea token have to stay on the tree forever? Just when Sun Mu and the others looked gloomy, Yang Ryun, not far away, said lightly, "It's useless." During the Millennium Snapper's chanting, this big red trunk is a fire array, which can't be broken by external forces. A member of the Sun family suddenly grabbed Yang Ryun's neck with one hand. "Tell me, how can we get Hanfei out?" The corners of Yang Ryun's mouth curled up. "When the chanting is over, it'll be fine." Sun Mu looked at Yang Ryun, his eyes frightening. "How long will it take?" Yang Ryun replied lightly, "About an hour." When everyone heard that, they couldn't help but be shocked. Stay in this fire array for an hour? Didn't you see our people calling for help when they went in for 10 minutes? 2 hours? They must have been burned to death. Sure enough, the breath of the Sun family member who was calling for help was getting weaker and weaker. He knew that everyone had tried to save him just now, but unfortunately, it didn't work. So he turned around and went to find Hanfei. Even if he died, at least he would die a worthy death. However, at this moment, Hanfei was resisting the flames with all his strength. The indestructible body was devouring energy crazily. The spiritual energy in his body was also being consumed at a speed visible to the naked eye. Most importantly, Hanfei found that his spiritual perception was useless. He couldn't even perceive people half a meter away. F***CK, if I had known this would happen, I would have tricked Master Hexagon into saving some spiritual energy. Now, it's not necessarily enough. Hanfei was also a little anxious. He had less than 1,000,000 points of spiritual energy in total. Before, he had thrown 50,000 points of spiritual energy to set up the array, and now he only had about 900,000 points left. He had to save them. After a while, Hanfei's scalp was numb, and his skin had been burned through several times. About 5 minutes later, Han Fei heard someone scream not far away from him. Huh, someone else came in? Han Fei grinned. It would be great if the Sun family had all come in. Without the cruel body-refining technique like the indestructible body, it would be hard for him to stay alive unless he consumed millions of points of spiritual energy. The reason why Han Fei dared to rush in was that his physique was unparalleled, and the indestructible body was enough to bear the power of the flames. Who would have thought that someone would really follow him in? Hiss! Han Fei couldn't laugh anymore. Another new part of his skin was torn apart. Fortunately, no one else saw it, or their eyes would have popped out of their sockets. At this moment, Han Fei was burned like a porcelain doll full of cracks. It seemed that he would be broken with a poke of a finger. Half an hour later, Han Fei's face became extremely gloomy. The flames were stronger than he expected. The cultivation speed of the indestructible body was extremely fast. In just a short while, he had refined a fish fire for half a day. Nearly 300,000 points of spiritual energy were used to repair his body. But Han Fei didn't stop cultivating. He seemed to feel a bottleneck related to his physique. For a long time, the indestructible body seemed to be blocked by an invisible barrier. As a result, although his physique was strong, it was not as ridiculously strong as Ren Tianfen's. This time, he really felt this threshold, which seemed to be his own limit. Last time, after the fish fire of the fiery mountain was refined, because of his realm, strength, and internal energy, his physique seemed to be stronger, but in fact, it was still far from it. After a year of slowly refining and absorbing, his physique just reached a peak. But today, this peak state was broken again. An hour passed. Han Fei's skin, flesh, and bone showed a glimmer of crystal luster. Han Fei was hesitating. He had consumed almost 600,000 points of spiritual energy, but he felt that he was still a little bit short, just a little bit, and he would be able to enter a new realm of physique. But at this moment, Han Fei felt that the temperature of his body surface was dropping, and the raging flames suddenly became small. Oh, why is it gone? Come on, I'm about to make a breakthrough. Han Fei almost spat out a mouthful of blood. He felt that he might break through a state of physical limit at any time. But suddenly, because the fire became smaller, this feeling disappeared. Isn't it annoying? At this moment, an arrow was shot at Han Fei's face. Chapter 359. The moment he saw this arrow, Han Fei knew that it was no longer safe. The seals seemed to be gone. The flame was pierced through by this arrow, and Han Fei's face changed slightly. Before he moved, the water-dividing seal had already been shot out. Boom! Han Fei was pushed back by the arrow, and his arm felt slightly uncomfortable. He felt that his strength seemed to have increased by thousands of kilograms, and his body was firmer. Theoretically speaking, at this moment, his body should have surpassed the so-called peak-level dangling fishers. Old Jiang once said that fighting depended on whose fist was bigger and harder. Han Fei thought that it shouldn't be difficult for him to kill an advanced dangling fisher with his current fist. However, the barrier of the indestructible body art was still not broken. Come out. Han Fei received the hexagon starfish's message, and his face changed slightly. Go out now. Do you want me to be hacked to death? Han Fei asked. Master Hexagon, what's going on outside? The hexagon starfish muttered. 2 more groups of people are coming. Han Fei put on a set of clothes and then poked his head out of the leaves. In the next moment, an arrow was shot at him. However, when the arrow was still 100 meters away from Han Fei saw a woman holding a sword with one hand and smashing the arrow with the sword. Then, a young man of 17 or 18 years old appeared in Han Fei's field of vision with 2 black crystal axes. The young man smiled and said, Sun Mu, is this the person your Sun family is looking for? Han Fei said, Master Hexagon, where are you? Who is this? Han Fei glanced at a red leaf next to his head, and on it, a hexagon starfish smaller than a palm was staring at him with its 6 big eyes. I just came. I seem to have a conflict with the people who chased you. Han Fei was speechless. Master Hexagon, when did you come to my side? The hexagon starfish climbed to Han Fei's shoulder and said, I was afraid that they would beat me. So I got in too. Han Fei, the young man with the axes, looked at Han Fei and said with a smile, "Are you Han Fei? I heard that you got the sea token." The woman with the sword also turned her head, looked at Han Fei, and said with a smile, "The Sun family made such a big fuss to find you. Otherwise, we would still be kept in the dark." Han Fei asked timidly, "Who are you?" The woman blinked and said, "Of course, he's also from the Thousand Star City. Why don't you give me the sea token, and I'll give myself to you?" Immediately, Han Fei shivered. Isn't this too straightforward? Could the sea token be used like this? The young man with the axe said, "Mo Fian, can't you find a man? Why did you have to find a country bumpkin?" Mo Fian giggled. "Yang to you. She is much more promising than you. He killed many peak-level dangling fishers of the Sun family on his own. His strength is really not low. He is a talent." Sun Mu walked over step by step, glanced at the two of them coldly, and said, "Mo Fian, Yangdu, are you going to oppose the Sun family?" "Ha ha ha." Yangdu laughed heartily. He pointed the black crystal axe at Sun Mu and said, "Is it the first time I've been going against your Sun family? The sea token belongs to the Fated One. The Sun family wants to monopolize it. Have you asked for the permission of the double axes in my hands?" Mo Fian also smiled. "Sun Mu, you think too highly of yourself. I heard that the Sun family failed to hunt us twice, and now you don't allow us to come here?" With that, the girl turned to look at Han Fei and said with a smile, "My proposal will always stand. You're also very beautiful. You made a fortune." Han Fei felt goosebumps all over his body. This woman was beautiful, but he couldn't stand her when she talked. Unlike Xia Xiaochan would occasionally act cute, but she wasn't good at it. Deep down, she was still a violent woman. But the woman in front of him was different. She was really seductive. Han Fei stretched out a hand and said, "Hey, beauty, do you want the sea token?" "Sure. Help me kill that Sun Mu, right? Help me kill Sun Mu, and I will give you the sea token." Mo Fian smiled sweetly. "Then give it to me first, and then I will help you kill him. Coincidentally, if you give it to me, you'll be able to divert the trouble to someone else, and no one will continue to cause trouble for you. What do you think?" Seeing that his little trick didn't work, Han Fei couldn't help but smile. "No, why don't you come in and take it?" "Okay." To Han Fei's surprise, none of Mo Fian, Sun Mu, and Yang Diyu were ready to take action. They all looked at Han Fei with a smile. At that time, Han Fei only felt that something was wrong. Attach. 9-star chain. Han Fei thought he was stalling for time, but he didn't expect that the other party was also stalling for time. A weird big net pounced at him from behind. Han Fei recognized it. It was a net woven by the spirit forbidden rope. When he was in the Fiery Mountain, Sun Yi caught Luo Xiaobai with a spirit forbidden rope. He still had one in Forge the Universe. He hadn't used it before, and he didn't expect to encounter it again today. At this moment, these people had secretly arranged for people to attack from behind, trying to hunt him. The 9-star chain was inserted into the ground and instantly pulled back. In an instant, Han Fei rushed out. But immediately afterward, Sun Mu, Mo Fian, and Yang Diyu surrounded him. F***CK, let's die together. Swish, 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 3 blue sea wandering dragon daggers instantly shot at these 3 people. Explode. In an instant, the 3 people's faces changed drastically and they all retreated. At that moment, the 3 of them each showed their skills. An ice shield appeared in front of Sun Mu. Mo Fian turned into smoke and disappeared. Yang Diyu held his double axes in front of his chest, and a turtle was attached to his body. BM, BM, BM. Han Fei was even more ferocious. He rushed in Mo Fian's direction and was blasted by his own blue sea wandering dragon daggers. The fragments of the daggers sank into his body, and his arms and abdomen were bleeding. BM, with a burst of spiritual energy, the fragments were shaken out of Han Fei's body, and he sprayed the divine healing technique on himself. Sun Mu shouted coldly, "Let's see how many more spiritual weapons you can explode." Han Fei didn't say a word and swam straight up. Mo Fian appeared, her face a little pale. Looking at Han Fei, who was swimming up quickly, she couldn't help but frown slightly. What a domineering man. He even blew himself up. But is he rushing to the Millennium Snappers? Yangdu spat. I didn't expect that I would forget what happened here today. Otherwise, the three of US joined forces and even used the Spirit Forbidden Net, but he still escaped. I can't afford to lose face. Han Fei felt his heart bleeding. 3 spiritual weapons exploded in the blink of an eye. These damn guys, I must make them pay double in the future. Otherwise, he felt that he couldn't get over this hurdle in his heart. Don't go up. The fruit is coming soon. Those fish are very fierce. The hexagon starfish emerged from Han Fei's shoulder and reminded him. Han Fei had swum more than 500 meters high and was only a few hundred meters away from the Millennium Snappers. Behind him, 5 peak-level dangling fishers were chasing him. How could he stop? Humph, Master Hexagon Starfish, hold on tight. Ho! When he was hundreds of meters away from the Millennium Snappers, Han Fei opened his hand and the blue sea wandering dragon bow appeared. Swish, an arrow containing thousands of points of spiritual energy shot directly into the Millennium Snappers and exploded. Behind him, the 5 people chasing Han Fei all changed their expressions. This is a F*King lunatic. They were just going to drive Han Fei into the Millennium Snappers. Who would have thought that this guy would take the initiative to attack them? Squeak! The Millennium Snappers' singing suddenly stopped. The interruption of their singing seemed to arouse the ferocity of these Millennium Snappers. Squeak! Squeak! Accompanied by the gazes of thousands of Millennium Snappers, those red sword leaves moved. In an instant, thousands of sword leaves swept over overwhelmingly. Han Fei's eyelids twitched, and he immediately turned around and ran back. The 5 people who had been chasing Han Fei turned back faster than Han Fei. At the moment when Han Fei attacked the Millennium Snappers, they had already turned around and ran. However, the range of this big red trunk was only so large. Where could they run? Han Fei turned around and shot another arrow, still at the Millennium Snappers. In midair, Han Fei said to everyone via voice transmission, come on. Weren't you very powerful just now? Come and kill me now. Sun Mu and the others all changed their expressions. Han Fei, this lunatic, actually took the initiative to provoke a war. At this moment, his whole body was almost covered by the sword leaves, and everyone could still hear the clanking sound. Han Fei spread his wings, and with a sky full of red leaves, he charged at a peak-level dangling fisher of the Sun family. The man felt his blood freeze. There are so many people. Why didn't you chase them? Why did you just target me? At this moment, on the big red trunk side, all the other people who came in on their own were speechless. Are these people crazy? We're here to look for opportunities. Do you have to fight to the death? Han Fei's speed was extremely fast. After spreading his wings, he was even faster than the average peak-level dangling fisher. Just as he was about to grab a person, that person actually disappeared with a whoosh. F***ck. Han Fei was speechless. It seemed that it was really not easy to kill a peak-level dangling fisher. That person could easily crush a flash stone and run away. But Han Fei didn't give up. He turned around and chased another person. Chapter 360. The scene outside the big red trunk suddenly became extremely strange. The dragon-like red leaves were chasing Han Fei, and Han Fei was chasing a peak-level dangling fisher. At this moment, Han Fei had caught up with another person. The man was about to escape, but suddenly he felt that the spiritual energy in his body stagnated, and a golden rope had tied him up. Spirit-restricting rope? No. Han Fei picked up the man and then got into the sword leaves. After only a few seconds, the man fell out of the leaves. His chest was pierced by a knife, and his internal organs were shattered. Sun Mu's face changed slightly. Mo, Fian, Yangyu, if you want the sea token, let your people do it. The 2 who were still watching the show shrugged slightly. However, they didn't refute and just waved their hands. In an instant, 12 peak-level dangling fishers attacked him. In the splendor, Han Fei was blown away together with the sword leaves. F***ck. So many? Han Fei was dumbfounded. Are peak-level dangling fishers so worthless? There are more than a dozen of them, and there are 3 noble young masters and young ladies watching the show. Do they really think I'm a monkey? Chi-Lu. In order to prevent these people from chasing him, Han Fei rushed into the school of Millennium Snappers again. However, this time, none of the 12 people behind him looked back. All of them seemed to be watching a show. They seemed to be saying that Li Yao should either rush into the shoal of Millennium Snappers or get down here and wait to be captured. Han Fei said, "You forced me to do this." Pooh! Han Fei rushed into the 500-meter high big red trunk leaves. At the moment he entered, Han Fei threw the hexagon starfish out. "Master Hexagon Starfish, help me set up a concealment array. Hurry up." The hexagon starfish muttered, "The concealment array can't stop 12 people. We will definitely be discovered. 3 seconds. As long as we can hold on for 3 seconds, it will be enough." The hexagon starfish asked, "Is this simple?" In the red leaves, the 12 people were still chasing him. However, these 12 people formed a group and blocked the burning of the red leaves with spiritual energy. Han Fei didn't have it so easy. As he ran, he was burning at the same time. His brain was about to explode. "Mr. Hexagon Starfish, are you done?" The hexagon starfish said, "Okay, come here." After a while, where's that kid?" Someone was confused. "He was almost blocked by us just now. Did he use a flash stone to get out?" Someone shook his head. "No, we can sense it if it's a flash stone. Moreover, with young master and the rest outside, he won't be able to escape." "No, there's a concealment array." Immediately, a few people made their moves. That concealment formation was directly shattered, but in the end, they still could not find him. In Forge the Universe, Han Fei kept casting the divine healing technique on himself. How tragic! He thought that there were only the people of the Sun family. He thought that the superminds he had set up in the land of starfish could kill a few of them. But who knew that so many of them would appear all of a sudden? They were all peak-level great fishing masters. It was hard for him to kill one, let alone so many. Truth be told, Han Fei believed that in a head-on confrontation, all 3 of them would be enough to suppress him. 4 people could beat him like an ironhead fish. 5 people could beat him like a punching bag. Han Fei's face was black. "Okay, you want the sea token, don't you? I'll make one for you on the spot." Han Fei had a lot of materials and several spiritual weapons that he got from killing others. He put in a lot of effort and threw a mid-grade spiritual longsword into the gourd. He didn't need to synthesize many materials to reforge it. Otherwise, a mid-quality spiritual weapon would cost a lot of spiritual energy. Han Fei had very little spiritual energy at the moment. After cultivating the indestructible body for an hour, he didn't even have 300,000 points of spiritual energy. At this moment, seeing his spiritual energy suddenly become 240,163 points, he almost burst into tears. This time, after going out, he really had to find a place to properly cultivate. Otherwise, with his current rate of consumption, he was afraid that the next time he was chased, he would run out of spirit chi while fighting. Who could he cry to? But what Han Fei didn't know was that no matter how fast it was, it would take him a while to reforge it. He didn't know that something big had happened outside. Yang Rin didn't care about Han Fei from beginning to end. And because of his low strength, he was only guarded by Sun Mu alone. At this moment, when everyone's eyes were focused on Han Fei, on the trunk of the big red trunk, a circle of ancient characters appeared. If Han Fei were here, he would recognize that this was the map that Yang Rin had just thrown out. But at this moment, no one knew. Jingle, jingle. Yang Rin suddenly crossed her hands and shook them, and the bell on her wrist made a crisp sound. "What are you doing?" Next to Yang Rin, the servant of the Sun family scolded. Yang Rin lowered her head with a smile on her face. "Father, after 9 years, I'm finally here. This time, if I can't succeed, I will sacrifice myself." When the servant of the Sun family heard this, for some reason, he felt a sense of horror. He grabbed Yang Ruyun's neck and said, "What did you just say? What do you want to sacrifice?" On the other side, Sun Mu and the others found something wrong and swam over. "What's going on?" There was no fear on Yang Ruyun's face. At this moment, she actually laughed. "Red Ball, here it comes." The grumpy Yang Diu kicked Yang Ruyun away. "Red Ball what? What's that?" Before Yang Diu continued to ask, everyone suddenly raised their heads. It was a dense red light, which seemed to be coming from the leaves of the big red trunk. In this red light, there were also dazzling red light spots, which turned into streamers and flew towards everyone present. Mo Fian raised her hand, and a green ring on her hand emitted a green jade-colored seal, directly protecting her whole body in it. Yang Diu and Su Mu also reacted immediately. Like Mo Fian, they were also protected by some kind of seal. But the others didn't have such prominent identities, so they were instantly wrapped by the red light. Within the entire range of the big red trunk, nearly 30 people were almost petrified in an instant, motionless. Yang Diu said angrily, "What's this? I feel that my protective jade is about to break." Mo Fian no longer looked enchanting, and her face was ugly. "Me too." Sun Mu looked at the others, thought for a moment, and immediately took back the protective jade that was about to break. At the moment when the seal around Sun Mu disappeared, he entered a petrified state. Yang Diu and Mo Fian looked at each other, put away the protective jade at the same time, and also entered this petrified state. Only Yang Ruiyun, who had been ignored by everyone, suddenly opened her eyes. She shook her spiritual energy, and the clothes on her body were shattered. What was exposed was the dense, weird tattoos all over her body. These tattoos were shining with golden light, dazzling and dazzling. Yang Ruiyun reached out and seemed to grab something. When she put it in her hand, it turned out to be a crimson spiritual fruit. Yang Ruiyun stuffed this crimson spiritual fruit into her mouth without hesitation. After a long time, she suddenly raised her head and squeaked at the big red trunk. At this moment, everyone was frozen in place. Otherwise, they would have been too shocked to speak. Isn't this the sound made by the Millennium Snapper? At this moment, Han Fei's injuries had recovered, and he was holding 2 identical tokens in his hand. TSK, this method of forgery is amazing. Why didn't I think of forging one earlier? Han Fei glanced at the fake C token in his hand. A mid-quality spiritual weapon. No matter whether this thing was fake or not, it was still a spiritual weapon. He was a little reluctant to throw it away. Forget it. As long as those people don't bother me, I'll give it to them. With a swish, Han Fei disappeared from Forge the Universe. Master Hexagon Starfish. Master Hexagon Starfish, where are you? However, before Han Fei finished his words, he felt a strange force attached to his body. He felt his limbs were stiff, and an indescribable sleepiness came over him. Buzz, Han Fei felt that the demon purification pot in his hand kept flickering, and the next moment, a large amount of spiritual energy surrounded him. The demon purification pot actually took the initiative to use spiritual energy, but even so, Han Fei still felt that his limbs were gradually stiffening, and he found that he couldn't run anymore. "No, I can't stay in the tree." Han Fei bit the tip of his tongue, and the next moment, he jumped out. His whole body was free-falling among the leaves. Occasionally, when he hit a branch, he had to move to let himself continue to fall. He had no choice. If he stayed on the tree, he would be burned alive by the leaves of the big red trunk. His current spiritual energy was not enough to support him for half an hour. Finally, when Han Fei felt that he was about to fall asleep, he finally fell out of the leaves of the big red trunk. However, as soon as he landed, he was on his back. At that time, he was stunned. His eyes were full of flashing red light, and there seemed to be a fruit in front of him. He only saw the word red ball, and then he didn't know anything else. Chapter 361. He heard the gurgling sound of water, and his body seemed to be soaked by seawater. From his mouth and nose to his lungs, he felt slightly cold. Han Fei woke up from the chaos and struggled to open his eyes. Suddenly, Han Fei shivered. He was too familiar with the view before him. Everything was like a magnifying glass from the weird perspective. He rolled his eyes and saw a tall seaweed. The round vine seaweed was floating above his head like a huge millstone. He rolled his eyes down and felt that he was in a chaotic place. Every rock at the bottom of the sea, every strand of seaweed, every fish that swam by, Everything seemed to be bent, and it was an indescribable ugliness. Am I in the soul ocean again? But then, Han Fei felt that something was wrong. Behind him, there were a dozen fish that looked the same as him. They were fish that Han Fei couldn't tell the name of at all. The demon purification pot's detection ability seemed to have failed. Because it was not the first time that he had experienced this feeling, Han Fei quickly turned his body, trying to see what the fish behind him looked like. But as he turned sideways, the shoal of fish behind him followed suit. However, he still saw it. It was a fish with a red tail and long fins. When its tail waved, it was like a soft veil that blocked the wind on a summer day. When a big black fish swam close, Han Fei subconsciously swam quickly and took an arc in the water. The group of fish behind him also followed him to the side. Isn't it the soul ocean? Han Fei was stunned. At that moment, he seemed to have sensed the hostility of the big black fish. It was trying to prey on him. An anti-heaven blade? When the big black fish completely bypassed him, Han Fei saw its whole body clearly and was shocked. He watched as the anti-heaven blade turned around and charged at the dozen or so small fish that he was leading. Again, Han Fei immediately accelerated, and his body drew a graceful red shadow in the water like an arc. However, one of the fish behind him seemed to be a little slow and was bitten by the anti-heaven blade. In Han Fei's eyes, the enormous anti-heaven blade was like a behemoth in the ocean. It shook its head and tore off the tail of the red fish. A fish without a tail would definitely die. The next moment, anti-heaven blade bit it in his mouth and swallowed it in a few bites. Holy shit, Han Fei subconsciously swallowed. However, how could he have any saliva left? A mouthful of seawater was swallowed into its mouth and flowed out along its gills. Han Fei was dumbfounded. This was not the Soul Ocean. Where is this? Yes, if he was in the Soul Ocean, he should have possessed Little Black or Little White. If he could really possess Little Black, he would be able to kill the anti-heaven blade without hesitation. Putting aside the anti-heaven saber, he could do anything he wanted. He would not stop until he was dead. But now, Han Fei opened his mouth. Although he had teeth in his mouth, what could he eat? Compared with the enormous anti-heaven saber, Han Fei regretfully discovered that he was no taller than half a meter. In other words, he was about the same size as Little Black, but his ability was not just a little bit inferior. Blacky Whitey. He tried to release Little Black and Little White, but they didn't move at all. He tried to summon the nine-tail mantis shrimp and Little Gold, but nothing happened. It doesn't work? Damn it, forge the universe. Han Fei tragically discovered that he couldn't sense anything at all. He wanted to separate his soul from his body, but he couldn't even do that. How the hell did I become like this? Why am I waiting for other fish to eat me? Han Fei felt that the whole world was not good. Just a second ago, he only felt extremely sleepy, but the moment he closed his eyes and opened them, he had become a fish. Who the hell should I tell? At this moment, Han Fei saw a few more anti-heaven sabers swimming close quickly from a distance. He was lost for words. Weren't they trying to kill him? With his tiny body, he could be killed in a few bites. Chilu, Han Fei began to speed up, his tail wagging nonstop. The minions behind him also began to speed up with Han Fei. For a moment, the anti-heaven sabers seemed stunned. Originally, in their eyes, this group was just a bunch of tiny food. Usually, they could just charge over and take one away with a single swipe. Why did they suddenly speed up? However, Han Fei's actions seemed to have boosted the fighting spirit of the anti-heaven sabers, who sprinted after him. The anti-heaven sabers were swimming blindly in front of him, and the anti-heaven sabers were chasing them blindly. Several times, the anti-heaven sabers almost broke up his school of fish. Thankfully, he was steady and didn't get caught, or the school of fish would have been doomed. However, even so, Han Fei lost two more underlings. Han Fei turned around, only to find that there were only a dozen or so lackeys behind him, but their number was plummeting. When an anti-heaven saber came close, Han Fei even saw that its blade aura was going to cut him into halves. Immediately, he flashed forward as fast as he could. The moment Han Fei flung himself out, he found that his tail left a red trace at the bottom of the sea that looked like a thread. When he brushed past the anti-heaven blade, he had the urge to bite the anti-heaven blade to death. No, I can't go on like this. Han Fei even thought that the big fish usually hunted the small fish from the middle, because the middle was densest and easiest to prey on. But if his underlings were all eaten up, then what was the point of being in the middle? As the leader, he would be killed at any moment. There was no telling whether it was because of the fish's own thinking or because Han Fei was affected by something, but when he saw another lackey was bitten to death, Han Fei was infuriated. Seeing that an anti-heaven blade was charging at him, Han Fei swung his tail hard, turned around, and bit the anti-heaven blade backhandedly. As Han Fei bit down, a piece of flesh was bitten off by him. Han Fei wasn't the only fish that fought back. While he fought back, he sensed that the lackeys behind him went on a rampage and bit at the anti-heaven saber. Almost in the blink of an eye, a dozen pieces of flesh were bitten off from the anti-heaven saber, and the water was almost dyed red by the fish's blood. Han Fei was shocked. Shoot, are my teeth so tough? It's so easy to tear off a piece of flesh without any resistance. Han Fei realized that every fish had its own characteristics. Although he was small, his teeth were not bad, and his reaction speed was quite fast. Han Fei was so excited that he blew a bubble. Brothers, charge with me. The little guys surrounded the anti-heaven saber crazily. It only took them 2 seconds to bite the anti-heaven saber into a sieve. The smell of blood stimulated the few anti-heaven sabers that were chasing him. In the chaos, Han Fei dodged left and right and bit every fish he caught. After a minute, Han Fei only had 9 lackeys left. However, 4 anti-heaven sabers had been killed by them. At this moment, there were only a pile of bones left. Han Fei hurried to flee with his lackeys. Such a strong smell of blood would inevitably attract more fish. If he stayed any longer, he would probably die here. However, when Han Fei began to flee quickly, he found that his teeth were itchy and he wanted to bite something. Not just his teeth, Han Fei also felt that he was swimming more than 10% faster than before. I can improve myself by eating fish. Han Fei immediately grew excited. This was somewhat similar to the Soul Sea. Back then, he had transformed into Little Black and devoured everything in the Soul Ocean. His strength had skyrocketed like a rocket. At this moment, he seemed to have discovered something. Although this was not the Soul Ocean, he still needed food, a lot of food. Only in this way could he grow quickly and escape the fate of being hunted. Although, until now, he still did not understand why he became a fish. But he guessed that it should be some strange phenomenon caused by the red light. That woman, Yang Riyun, had been acting strangely before. He felt that she had a huge secret. That was why he insisted on teaming up with Yang Riyun when he saw her in the Seaborn Prairie. The big secret was too tempting. At this moment, he felt that the big secret was right in front of him. Also, he wondered if the others had also become fish. Han Fei didn't know if his guess was right, but since Yang Riyun said that half of them could go back alive, it meant that his current state was definitely not a dead end. Since it wasn't a dead end, he had to survive and find a way back. Chapter 362. Eating was the eternal truth in this world. Eating with the mouth was eating. Absorbing spiritual energy with the body was also eating. Swallowing spiritual fruits and energy was still eating. At this time, Han Fei seemed to have understood the true meaning of the fish world, which was to eat. With this accurate understanding, Han Fei's purpose was clear. If he wanted to go out, he had to survive first. If he wanted to survive, he couldn't hide. Only by constantly strengthening himself could he survive in this world of fish. Han Fei quickly left the bottom of the sea with his 9 little brothers. At this moment, he had no spiritual perception ability, so he couldn't detect the creatures hidden on the bottom of the sea. Instead, the middle and upper levels were the most lively places in the sea. Creatures of all sizes, hundreds of fish, almost all lived and hunted there. Brothers, let's go. Although Han Fei didn't know what kind of fish he was, this fish didn't seem bad. Its advantages were fast, good teeth, and a big appetite. After avoiding a small group of spiky armor fish, he ran around a treasure-hunting fish and finally found a school of crescent moon fish. There were a lot of crescent moon fish. Han Fei was just about to rush up when the crescent arc-like knives slashed at him, scaring him into turning around and running away. Han Fei was about to cry. He only had 9 little brothers, so obviously he couldn't beat them. Fortunately, there was no such thing as a heartless fish. After struggling for a long time and losing a little brother, he finally encountered a school of pearl fish. "Brothers, let's eat." Han Fei attacked at full speed with all his might, and finally tasted the delicious fish. Yes, the feeling of eating fish was like eating braised pork. As long as it was a large piece of meat, it would feel wonderful. Han Fei and his 9 little brothers, like a group of bandits, chased after the pearl fish and ate them for a long time until they encountered a group of the same kind who also came to hunt. Han Fei was stunned. Can the same species be eaten? After crazily devouring dozens of pearl fish, he had become several times bigger. Whether it was speed, strength, or bite force, he felt that he had become several times stronger. Now a group of the same kind came. The other party was a little smaller than him. However, when Han Fei saw the fish's eyes, he was a little flustered. Humans? Yes, while he was sizing up the fish was also sizing him up. Without a doubt, the other party was definitely like him, possessed by a human. Normally, the same kind shouldn't eat the same kind, but at this moment, Han Fei couldn't help but want to bite that fish to death. It was a palpitation from the bottom of his heart. He was afraid that the other party had the same thoughts as him. But the problem was that Han Fei still had 1 underling left. But on the other side, there were as many as 17. Although the fish on the other side were smaller, there were more of them. Han Fei wanted to restrain himself from eating the fish, but when he was about to turn around, his desire made him stay. That desire told him that he could win. The fish opposite him could win. Perhaps they were blinded by the desire, but the two of them charged at each other at the same time. The lackeys behind him also began to follow closely behind, as if they were willing to risk their lives for their boss. Dozens of red lines twisted and tore at each other in the sea. In an instant, the entire body of water was filled with red shadows. Han Fei didn't underestimate his combat power. It was natural for a big fish to eat a small fish. The other party didn't seem to expect the fish led by Han Fei to be so powerful. After just a few clashes, half of his lackeys were lost, while only 2 were killed on Han Fei's side. The other party was scared and wanted to escape, but Han Fei went crazy and chased after him to bite him. Crack! When Han Fei bit the other party's tail, the balance of victory had already tilted to him. If a fish had no tail, how could it swim? As the other party struggled in horror, Han Fei bit him through in a few bites. But different from eating fish before, when Han Fei bit the other party to death, a mysterious energy was absorbed from the other party's body into his own. Suddenly, Han Fei felt that he had become as much as 50% stronger. When Han Fei looked back, he found that the lackeys on both sides had stopped biting. This person's lackeys still had 4 left, and his lackeys only had 5 left. At that moment, there were 9 fish behind Han Fei again. When Han Fei realized what was going on, he suddenly realized something. Could it be that all the people on the big red trunk side had become fish, and then they were thrown into this sea area to fight each other? Could they grow by plundering the power of other fish? If so, didn't it mean that he still had dozens of opponents? Not only human opponents, but also the native marine creatures in this sea area. But these were not the key points. The key point was, why did everyone possess the body of a fish? When everyone was born, they all had a group of lackeys. Was it to protect themselves? If it was really to protect him when he was young in the early stages, then this had become a game where the goal was to kill. But what was the purpose of the game? In this world, there was no reason for anything. Everything was related to cause and effect. The result of the fish fighting each other was like raising poisonous insects. In the end, the strong would definitely survive, and they would get stronger and stronger. If you didn't want to die, you had to fight. At this time, Han Fei probably understood why people died in the center of the seaborne prairie, where the big red trunk was. In fact, the real place where people died was not there, but in the fishery where he was now. In this way, there was only one question left in Han Fei's mind. What if he became one of the last few surviving fish? With this question, Han Fei didn't dare to stay for a moment and continued to look for fish with his new lackeys. Han Fei didn't know how long it had been. It seemed that fish always had no concept of time. He only knew that he had eaten a lot of fish, and now his body had almost turned dark red. During this period, he encountered other people with their lackeys 3 times, but they were all killed by him. Originally, he had 7 fish, but now he had 1 fish. Of course, after several battles, the first batch of lackeys that followed him had long been killed. The later lackeys didn't have the original accumulation, so the gap between them was getting bigger and bigger. Now, the strongest one was probably not even half as fast and strong as him. Just when Han Fei was about to continue to look for fish, a crazy smell came from the sea. It was not the smell of blood, but a special smell that was more tempting than spiritual energy. Immediately, Han Fei gave up looking for fish and followed the smell of luring fish. Something's wrong. Something's wrong. Han Fei shook his head from time to time. He found that the stronger he became, the more blurred his consciousness became. At this moment, stimulated by this smell, he almost completely lost his mind. No, I can't eat anymore. There's something wrong with this fish. Han Fei couldn't help turning sideways and looking at the group of lackeys behind him. Almost all of their eyes were red, and even when they swam, they had to bare their teeth and bite at the seawater. And they were all staring at him. At that moment, Han Fei was horrified. Are these guys going to eat me? Immediately, Han Fei shivered. The eyes of this group of fish were all red, and in their eyes, there was only food left. And he felt that he was about to lose control. Swish! Han Fei's body moved in an arc. Using his fastest speed, he made a semicircle upwards. The lackeys behind him wanted to keep up, but Han Fei was too fast. He circled around and bit at his little brother. When Han Fei bit his first lackey to death, this group of lackeys went crazy and all bit at Han Fei. I'm your King boss. Behave yourself. However, no fish paid any attention to him. They all bared their teeth and looked ferocious. CK. You want to bite me? Are you faster than me? Are you as big as me? Are your teeth as good as mine? This water area was soon covered with fine fish. Han Fei's lackeys had been bitten to death by him. At this time, Han Fei was almost out of control and felt that he was about to lose himself. When he looked out, the clear ocean world had turned into a bright red ocean world. No, I can't lose myself. I can't. But Han Fei suddenly straightened his body and bared his teeth. He rushed up and bit the remaining lackeys crazily. In just a moment, all the lackeys were bitten to death by Han Fei. And Han Fei's body had turned purple, and some parts of his body were purple and black. Han Fei was still lost in the end. In fact, Han Fei was not the only fish like this. In places where Han Fei couldn't see, there were dozens of fish like him. 2 of them were even larger than him. At this moment, the little red fish, which had been scattered around, all gathered in one place. Coincidentally, Han Fei happened to encounter a fish about the same size as him, with 5 or 6 lackeys behind it. The 2 sides were still far away from each other, but they rushed at each other. Han Fei felt like he was in a dream. In the dream, he was eating hot pot, gulping it down. After eating a lobster, he got a bull conch. After a bull conch was finished, he got another plate ray. Beside him, Lu Rinquang shivered and said, Fei Fei, when did you become so good at eating? For the first time, I actually lost to you at eating. Han Fei pushed Lu Rinquang away. Get out of the way, get out of the way, I'm hungry, I'm so hungry. Zhang Xuanyu sat opposite Han Fei. Fei Fei, do you want to become a fat man again? Then Xia Xiaochan will despise you when she sees you. Han Fei scoffed. I don't care. I'm hungry. If I'm hungry, I have to eat. Luo Xiaobai said lightly, don't eat too much. It's okay. I know what I'm doing. Han Fei continued to wolf down, and soon the plate ray was finished for him, and he threw in a big crab. Feeling that something was missing, Han Fei looked around. Hey, where's my garlic? Where's my chili? Where did you take my seasoning? Just when Han Fei was looking for seasoning, he suddenly stabbed a dagger into his stomach. He stabbed himself in the stomach with the show, leaving a large gash on his stomach. At this moment, Xia Xiaochan grinned at Han Fei, but Han Fei immediately found something wrong. At this moment, Xia Xiaochan grinned at Han Fei, but Han Fei immediately found that something was wrong. At this moment, Xia Xiaochan didn't move, but stared at Han Fei. However, Xia Xiaochan didn't move, but just stared at Han Fei. However, Xia Xiaochan didn't move, but stared straight at Han Fei. The Xia Xiaochan in front of him had turned into a big red fish. Han Fei shuddered and suddenly woke up. What did I do? I was eating fish with a group of kids, and in front of him there was a big red fish about the same size as him, covered with bite marks. And Han Fei felt that the fish's stomach hurt so much that its intestines almost fell out. Hiss! Han Fei suddenly accelerated, bumped his head into the big fish in front of him, and sent it flying. Then, his body turned into a red shadow, and he bit through the fish's belly. After several bites, Han Fei felt that there was surging energy in his body, which was inexhaustible. No, I can't eat it. I can't eat it anymore. Han Fei resisted the urge to swallow, spat out the large pieces of fish in his mouth with difficulty, and tried to stop his body from swimming. He struggled hard for a long time before he managed to resist the urge to continue swallowing. Although he wanted to rush up and tear other fish when he passed by them, his mind kept telling him that he couldn't eat it. He couldn't eat it. He didn't know how long he persisted, but Han Fei swam to a weird water area in a daze. This water area was dark, and as far as he could see, there seemed to be a burning fireball. For some reason, Han Fei just couldn't control himself and swam towards the fireball. After seeing the fireball clearly, Han Fei was refreshed again. Big red trunk. This was a big red trunk that was no more than 10 meters tall, many times smaller than the one he had seen before. However, it was this big red trunk that was full of red fruits. And around the big red trunk, there were dozens of fish like him. At this moment, they were all staring at the fruits. Among them, a few fish were emitting red light, and a wave of energy enveloped them. Han Fei saw a fish go forward and bite a fruit, and then its body also emitted red light. It was a kind of power that fascinated the fish more so than spiritual energy. Spiritual energy could only be used for cultivation, and this fruit made Han Fei only have one thought in his mind at that time. Eat it, you will become stronger after eating it, and you can become the strongest. Han Fei's eyes were a little confused. He wanted to bite it several times, but he couldn't. There were other fish that swallowed the fruit in one bite, and then seemed to become extremely powerful. But there were also fish that didn't move. Some were as confused as Han Fei, some struggled strongly, and some simply closed their mouths. In confusion and chaos, a sentence seemed to come to Han Fei's mind: "Don't eat the fruit." Thinking of this sentence, Han Fei immediately stepped back. It was too terrifying. This fruit was too terrifying, almost making him lose his mind. After Han Fei retreated dozens of meters away, he counted carefully. There were 26 fish on the spot, and 14 of them were glowing red. No, it's become 15. Another fish came forward and swallowed the fruit. Don't eat the fish. This sentence came to Han Fei's mind again. At that moment, he turned his head away. He absolutely could not eat this fruit. He was just a little bit away from eating it. The remaining 11 fish didn't eat the fruit. 2 of them, like Han Fei, retreated dozens of meters, and the rest kept struggling. But an unexpected scene happened. The fruits actually left the branches of the big red leaves, were carried by the red leaves, and were sent to the mouths of the fish that hadn't eaten. Even Han Fei had a fruit floating to his mouth. F***CK. I want to eat it, I'm so hungry. F***CK. I can't eat it. Han Fei pursed his lips. Even though the natural reaction of this fish body was to open this mouth, he still forcibly suppressed it. F***CK off. Han Fei suddenly turned around and slapped the fruit with his tail, sending it flying. But among the other struggling fish, 2 of them couldn't resist the temptation and finally swallowed the fruit into their stomachs. After the 2 fishes swallowed the spirit fruit, the red fruit's attractiveness suddenly decreased. Han Fei only felt that his whole body was much lighter. The only other fish were still quickly retreating, as if they had finally gotten rid of this damn fruit. However, as soon as the 9 of them retreated, they found that the fish opposite them suddenly looked at them. Clatter. Han Fei thought to himself, oh no. I resisted it, but these guys opposite me didn't. The 9 fish looked at each other almost subconsciously. Then they instantly gathered together. It was not impossible for them to fight against many. After all, the other party only had 17 fish, and these guys seemed to have lost their minds. But Han Fei and the other 9 fish were already sober at this moment. Would they do such a desperate thing? There were 2 fish around them, and they suddenly attacked 1 fish between them, and then directly threw the unlucky fish over with their tails. The group of red-eyed fish all rushed up after eating the spiritual fruit. Almost in the blink of an eye, a pool of blood burst out there. Han Fei was speechless. These people were too ruthless. Even at this moment, they still wanted to throw out cannon fodder. Han Fei and the other 9 fish quickly fled. Fearing that these damn guys would play dirty, Han Fei deliberately swam a little farther away. He didn't want to get close to either side. There seemed to be others who had the same idea as Han Fei, so the 9 fish soon dispersed. When the blood mist over there dissipated, there were only 14 of the 17 fish left. In just a moment, they had eaten 3 more fish. Han Fei didn't know if there were any fish chasing behind him, but he just ran as fast as he could. This fruit really couldn't be eaten. Not only could it not be eaten, but Han Fei also thought that fish couldn't be eaten either. Because in that secret realm, the Phantom seemed to have said something wrong. The fruit couldn't be eaten, and it also mentioned fish. Although it didn't make it clear, he felt that it should be warning him that fish couldn't be eaten either. Han Fei was helpless. What if I can't eat it? If I don't eat it at the beginning, I will soon be destroyed. But if I eat it, I will become addicted, and it will become a feeling of being able to eat it for a while. Han Fei felt that he was being controlled by the big red trunk. This thing was very bad. He didn't know how to turn people into fish, let alone whether he could go back or not. Just when he was thinking about that, his eyes suddenly went dark without any warning. He was caught off guard. When Han Fei woke up again, it was like a dream, extremely absurd. He opened his eyes, and what came into view was the red light all over the sky. At this moment, he was lying on the ground, his body still a little numb and stiff, but he could barely move. Han Fei sat up with difficulty and looked around, only to find that Sun Mu and the other 2 had just woken up. At this moment, they were covering their chest with horror on their faces. In other places, dozens of people woke up from the frozen state one after another, either falling to the ground or covering their heads. Han Fei was speechless. That's it? Everything is a dream? Everything is an illusion? Everyone is still alive? Chapter 363. The others also seemed to be wondering if this was a dream or a real test of life and death. However, the red light all over the sky hadn't dissipated yet. In front of him, there was really a red fruit floating. At this time, Han Fei finally saw what this fruit was. Name, Red Ball, Introduction. This is a spiritual fruit growing on the transformation demon tree, which can transform humans into demons. Because the level of the spiritual fruit is too low, it can't awaken wisdom. All demons were born from the primal chaos, and only after a long period of cultivation could they gain intelligence and become demons. Level, spiritual level, quality, high quality, contains spiritual energy greater than 6,696 points. Effect, humans can transform into demons, and sea demons can strengthen their bloodline. Han Fei was stunned. Humans can transform into demons, and sea demons it can transform into fish? Are you Astra's King kidding me? Han Fei felt that he was being noticed. He turned his head and saw that Sun Mu and the others were looking at him. Han Fei was speechless. I've just transformed into fish, and now I'm being hunted. How miserable. However, before Sun Mu and the others took any action, the subordinates around them all knelt on the ground or lay on the ground. Those who were lying on the ground were already dead, and the people kneeling on the ground were glowing red, and all of them were in pain. Not only Sun Mu's subordinates, but the other lone cultivators in the other 4 directions also fell to the ground one after another. Yang Diyu's face changed drastically, and he scolded angrily. Get up. What the hell is going on? Mo Fian's face was dark. He's dead. It's not a dream, but a trial? Sun Mu's face was also livid. No, It's not just a trial. There's also something wrong with the fruit. It's not chance. As Sun Mu spoke, the red light on the subordinate named Sun Shi became brighter and brighter until his flesh began to disintegrate, his hair began to burn, and his legs were disappearing. Get out of the way. Sun Mu picked up a subordinate who was fine with each hand and flashed to the side. Yang Diu also had a subordinate who was fine and was pushed aside by him. Only Mo Fian and her 3 subordinates were all kneeling on the ground. Squeak! Just when everyone was staring at Sun Chi, they heard a beautiful song coming from his body. Everyone who was still standing, including Han Fei, shuddered. They seemed to have discovered a shocking secret. Holy **T. It really will change? Han Fei swallowed. In his eyes, Sun Chi's body was rapidly transforming. His back bulged up, his feet turned into a fish's tail, his head and body fused together, and his arms grew fish fins. Gulp. Not just Sun Chi. Han Fei also saw a dozen people around him. They were all transforming with squeaking noises coming out of their bodies. Han Fei swallowed hard. Almost. When he became a fish, he almost ate the red ball in front of him. Suddenly, Han Fei sensed something between his eyebrows. Little Black and Little White were coming out. Of course, Han Fei wouldn't stop him. The moment Little White came out, it swallowed the red ball floating in the water. Han Fei was speechless. Xiaobai must be a sea demon too. To be precise, all marine creatures should be sea demons. Little White ate happily. When a red ball was swallowed, Little White and Little Black glowed at the same time. Upgraded, Han Fei's eyes widened. Is this red ball so effective on Little White and Little White? Han Fei couldn't help thinking, didn't the seaweed monster in the Seaweed City wall want me to bring him a red ball fruit? Little White and Little Black were running after the red ball. But for some reason, after a red ball was eaten by Little White, it could no longer catch up with the second one. Han Fei wasn't interested in the damn fruit at all, but his daughter needed it. Immediately, Han Fei took action and began to chase the fruit in the red light all over the sky. Maybe Han Fei was not a demon, but he just casually grabbed a red ball in his hand. Seeing that its master had succeeded, Little White hurriedly swam over and looked at Han Fei eagerly. Feeling that the red ball in his hand was struggling violently, Han Fei couldn't help but grin. I've been eaten once, so I can't eat it a second time? This fruit is a bit interesting. It's a pity that my daughter wants to eat it. You can't eat it. Han Fei opened his hand, and Little White sucked the red ball into its mouth. At this moment, Little White and Little Black were shining brighter and brighter, and Han Fei felt that these 2 little guys were about to make a breakthrough again. Seeing this, Han Fei couldn't help but be in a trance. Since Little White and Little Black can eat it, can Nine Tails and Little Gold eat it? Immediately, he released the nine-tailed mantis shrimp. But Nine Tails didn't react to the red ball at all, and didn't intend to catch it at all. Han Fei asked him to catch it, but the chain was very empty, and the red balls ran around him. On the other side, Sun Mu, Mo Fian, and the others looked at Han Fei's actions and couldn't help wondering, can spiritual beasts be eaten? Yang Diu's expression changed immediately, and a scorpion with a shiny shell appeared. Yang Diu grabbed the red ball in front of him and was about to give it to the scorpion, but Mo Fian stopped him with one hand. Mo Fian scoffed. Idiot, let your subordinates try it first. Yang Diu was taken aback and then looked coldly at his only remaining subordinate. Come on, this fruit doesn't hide from us. You can try to feed it to your spiritual beast. Yang Diu's subordinate's face darkened. In his heart, he couldn't wait to kill Mo Fian, this damn woman. It wasn't easy for him to survive, and it was just to be a guinea pig. Sun Mu asked, isn't there one more person? Let that person try it first. There was another person Sun Mu was talking about, an outsider who survived in addition to them and Han Fei. That person was quietly retreating at this moment. He was not stupid. It was already a blessing that he could survive. Whether it was the Sun Mu trio or Han Fei, he couldn't deal with them. If he didn't run away now, when would he? Seeing Yang Diu's subordinates chasing that person, Han Fei immediately said to Yang Diu via voice transmission, come to me. Now only you and I are left. If the 2 of us work together, we still have a chance. At the same time, Han Fei said to Sun Mu and the others via voice transmission. Stop. Do you think this is the end of the matter? Don't forget, the outside has been sealed, and our memories haven't disappeared yet. Sun Mu said, let's kill you first, and then talk about the rest. Han Fei was speechless. F*CKU. I know how to get out without losing my memories. When we get out of this damn place, let's fight again, okay? Immediately, Mo Fian raised her hand to stop him. Don't do it. Han Fei, do you really know? Han Fei chuckled. I'm different from you. I'm only an intermediate dangling fisher, and you are all peak-level dangling fishers. Since I dare to come here, I have a way to get out. Yang Diu immediately shouted to his subordinate, come back. And the remaining person, seeing Yang Diu's subordinate retreat, immediately swam to Han Fei. As Han Fei said, he was too weak alone. In front of a group of peak-level dangling fishers, an advanced dangling fisher, could be killed in a flash. In the eyes of Sun Mu and the others, an advanced dangling fisher was really not a threat, so they let him go. Yang Diu stared at Han Fei fiercely. Tell me, what can I do? Han Fei glanced at them and immediately had an idea. He immediately vowed, cut down the tree. The root of everything comes from this big red trunk. As long as we cut it down, all the problems will be solved. Bullsh *T. Mo Fian scoffed. If we could cut it down, wouldn't we have done it long ago? Do you think it's your turn to cut it down now? Yang Diu swore. Do you have a fish brain? Do you want to hit such a thick tree with your head? Han Fei said contemptuously, you people, including those who died, all know that there are opportunities here. Who will really come here to cut down the tree? Have any of you thought about it? Han Fei was quick-witted enough to think of this in a hurry. After all, when people saw such a huge tree, their first feeling was awe and fear. Most importantly, those who had left this place and lost their memories had all obtained fortuitous encounters. But now, Han Fei didn't feel that he had got any opportunities. The red ball was not an opportunity at all. If ordinary people ate it, they would immediately turn into fish. As for opportunities, it was just the opportunities of spiritual beasts. This did not make sense at all. Therefore, Han Fei guessed that something was going to happen next. Unfortunately, he didn't want that so-called opportunity at all now. Who wanted to lose their memories for nothing? It was better to find a way to cut down this tree directly. That would be a real opportunity. Sun Mu suddenly said, let's not talk about it. Where's the other person? Yang Diu asked, what? The other person? Sun Mu glanced around. I remember that a fish survived. However, there are only 7 people standing here at this moment. Where's the other person? Hearing Sun Mu's words, Han Fei was also stunned. However, Han Fei reacted faster. His first instinct was that Yang Ruoyun was gone. He looked around. Sure enough, the woman had disappeared. Then there was Yang Diu. He said coldly, the woman who rang the bell just now is gone. Sun Mu looked at Han Fei. Did that woman come with you? Han Fei shrugged. Don't ask me. I'm not familiar with her. If I was in cahoots with her, do you think I would have killed all of you long ago? Clatter. Just when everyone was full of doubts, dozens of red leaves floated down from the big red trunk, wrapping around those who had swallowed the red balls. At this moment, these people had almost all turned into fish. Its unique appearance was that of a millennium snapper. Han Fei, Sun Mu, and the others were also scared. People had turned into fish. This was a change of species. How terrifying was this? Then they looked above the big red trunk. The dense millennium snappers were singing, which made their hair stand on end. Are these all human beings? Mo Fian looked at her former subordinates not far away. At this moment, they were flapping their tails and making squeaking sounds. Mo Fian couldn't help but take a step back. Han Fei said, Master Hexagon Starfish, is there any other way to run out? Han Fei was scared. Different from the fish transformation technique. The fish transformation technique required people to actively try to turn into fish. Its ultimate purpose was to allow humans to freely switch between human form and fish form. This red ball, on the other hand, directly turned a person into a fish without any explanation. And it was specially turned into millennium snappers. Each of the millennium snappers here was equivalent to a human life. The hexagon starfish, who was hiding somewhere, responded to Han Fei, there's no way out. Unless I'm carried out by a fish, I can't get out. Carried out by a fish? Han Fei continued. Master Hexagon Starfish, can you help me collect a few more of those red fruits? The hexagon starfish drilled out of the ground and hung on Han Fei's calf. That's not difficult. There are a lot of fruits, but those fish don't give them to me. After eating one, they won't give me another one. But if you really want to take it, you can go to the school of fish to pick it. You could just let that little black fish of yours steal it. Han Fei's face changed slightly. That Millennium Snapper is very powerful and can control spiritual plants. What if it finds Little Black? The hexagon starfish said leisurely, fish are very stupid. They just guard the fruits, but once the fruits are picked, they don't care about them. Besides, your little black fish is not afraid of mental attacks. What are you worried about? Huh? How do you know that Little Black is not afraid of mental attacks? Han Fei was speechless. How do you know something that even I don't know? The hexagon starfish said, your spiritual beasts are a bit strange. They seem to share everything, but they are a bit different, as if they are one. If you don't let Little White out, the little black fish will not be afraid, even if it dies. Very strange, spiritual beasts. Han Fei was shocked. Little Black and Little White, as long as one survived, the other wouldn't die. But Han Fei didn't know that Little Black was not afraid of mental attacks. These were not recorded in the data. But the hexagon starfish, this mysterious big starfish, actually knew the secret between Little Black and Little White. Could it be that there was some kind of perception between mysterious creatures? Han Fei immediately asked Little Black to swim up to pick the fruits. This red ball was of no benefit to humans, but it seemed to have a strange enhancement for spiritual beasts. Yang Diu's subordinate didn't say a word at the moment, for fear that his little master would think of him and let his spiritual beast eat the fruits again. He had seen the tragedy of a human turning into a fish, so he didn't want to take the risk. But Han Fei said to him via voice transmission, Hey, do you want to cut down trees or not? Say something. Sun Mu took a deep look at Han Fei. Even if I kill you, I can still cut down trees. Why should I keep you alive? Han Fei sneered. Now, more than half of your manpower has been lost. Not to mention whether you can kill me or not. Even if you can kill me, I can guarantee that only one or two of you will survive at most. With that said, more than 40 spiritual weapons popped out of Han Fei's body. This was all he had. Similarly, it was also one of his trump cards. Han Fei sneered. Do you really think my spiritual weapons are useless? Even if I self-destruct, I can kill one or two of you. Is there a problem? Yang Diu rubbed his head. F***CK, I knew the guy who could snatch the C token was not simple. This guy's a bit tricky. Mo Fian scoffed. I like him more and more. Yang Diu glanced at Mo Fian contemptuously and cursed. Mo Fian, don't be so shameless. Mo Fian's face suddenly became extremely ugly, and a long sword in her hand was wrapped in frost, and she slashed at Yang Diu. Say that again. Looking at this scene, Han Fei chuckled and said, Little beauty, cut him. Use your strength. Yang Diu pointed the axe at Han Fei and said, Do you want to die? Han Fei grinned and said, I advise you to think about it quickly. Do you want to kill me or cut down trees? Don't dawdle. In a moment, something unexpected may happen again. If I turn into a fish again, how many of you think you can survive? Sun Mu said lightly, Try cutting it first. The trunk of this tree is thick, nearly 50 meters. Cut the tree with the sword in your hand. Don't forget, this is the big red trunk, a 10,000-year-old big red trunk. It's harder than a spiritual weapon. How many inches can you cut? Of course, Han Fei had already considered this. Hey, Sun Mu, your Sun family has chased me 3 times, so you must know me well. I'm not talented, but I know some refining techniques. It's not difficult for me to refine a spiritual weapon that can cut down this tree. As long as the 3 of you can give me a spiritual fruit each, it'll only take half an hour. I'll make a sharp weapon for cutting down trees in half an hour. Yang Diu immediately scolded. Who are you kidding, boy? You're about to die, and you still want to cheat spiritual fruits from us? Are you out of your mind? Mo Fian didn't speak, but looked at Sun Mu. Sun Mu frowned slightly, and then, to everyone's surprise, he really threw a spiritual fruit to Han Fei. Yang Yu asked, "Are you crazy?" Sun Mu looked at Han Fei expressionlessly. "There's still a lot of time to kill you, but today is an exception." There was a reason why Sun Mu made this choice. Not only because he was trapped in the seal of the big red trunk, but also because Yang Yu and Mo Fian were here. Even if he really killed Han Fei, it was still a question whether he could get the C token or not. With a smile, Mo Fian took a deep look at Sun Mu. This time a lot of people of the Sun family had died. However, Sun Mu didn't even blink and chose to cooperate with Han Fei. This was very interesting. Mo Fian also threw a spiritual fruit to Han Fei and said, "I'm more and more curious about you. To be honest, if you come to my Mo family, I won't give you the C token. I'll protect you from Sun Mu." Han Fei snorted. "You are very beautiful." Mo Fian giggled. "Thank you for your compliment, but you are more beautiful than me." Mo Fian, seeing that both Sun Mu and Mo Fian had given him a spiritual fruit, Yang Yu reluctantly threw out a spiritual fruit and threatened, "If you don't do it well, there will be one more person hunting you after today." Han Fei grabbed the 3 spiritual fruits and grinned. "Give me half an hour." Then Han Fei looked at the advanced, dangling fisher next to him and smiled. "Brother, they won't attack you now. Don't worry." Then Han Fei flashed into the leaves of the big red trunk. After a while, there was no trace of him. After a moment, in the outside world, Yang Yu said, "Sun Mu, this time, your Sun family has suffered a heavy loss. I don't think you could defeat that kid." Sun Mu snorted coldly. "What? Is your Yang family going to intervene?" Yang Yu looked rough, but in fact, he was not stupid. He sneered. "Haven't I already intervened? The C token can only be obtained by the Fated One. I think I may be the Fated One." Mo Fian nodded. "Count me in. Let's see who can get the C token by our own means." Sun Mu was still expressionless and said lightly, "If he were so easy to catch, my Sun family wouldn't have lost so many people. You can have a try. Also, don't forget that woman just now. We don't know where she has gone. She is a hidden danger." Yang Yu said disdainfully, "That woman is very weak. She can't compare with Han Fei." Sun Mu snorted and said, "Idiot, it doesn't matter how strong or weak the people who can come here are. None of them are simple. Don't forget, that woman is also an intermediate dangling fisher, which is even more rare." After half an hour, voila, a figure jumped out of the leaves. Who else could it be but Han Fei? Han Fei waved his hand, and several rings were thrown out. Yang Yu and Sun Mu's 2 subordinates immediately stepped forward and caught the rings. Only then did everyone see clearly that it was a soft saw nearly 100 meters long. The tiny blade, which looked like inverted teeth, made everyone have no doubt that this thing could easily cut off a spiritual weapon. Han Fei pulled the rings at the other end of the soft saw and said, "This big red trunk can't be cut by swords and knives, but it's different with a saw knife. How about it? Try it?" Han Fei was instigating. This big red trunk was the root of those Millennium Snappers. He didn't even know what would happen if he really sawed the tree. But Han Fei had to do this. He had to find a reason. Sawing the tree, triggering a riot of the Millennium Snappers, or some other series of consequences. No matter what, as long as he could kill the 5 people on the opposite side first. If the opposite side was just 5 ordinary peak-level dangling fishers, then he might try his best to kill them. But there were Sun Mu and the other 2 people on the opposite side. Although they hadn't fought, Han Fei was sure that with his current strength, he could only deal with one of them at most. If the 3 of them attacked him together, he would definitely be defeated. Although Han Fei thought he was very strong, it depended on who he was facing. How strong were the children of the big families in the Thousand-Star City? He didn't dare to guess. When he dealt with Sun Yi alone, the other party used a secret method to unleash the strength of a dangling fisher, and he was almost killed. Han Fei looked at Sun Mu and the others and said, "Do you want to do it? If you want to do it, hurry up." Yang Yu pouted and glanced at his subordinate. "You go." With that, he looked at Sun Mu again. "Hey, let your men go." Sun Mu nodded. In this regard, he and Yang Yu had the same mentality. They were not stupid. If they really went to cut the tree, they would still have a chance to react in case of a crisis. Han Fei seemed to have expected this result. He looked at the advanced, dangling fisher next to him and asked, "Brother, what's your name?" This person was not young, in his early 20s, and he was not used to being called brother by Han Fei. But he knew how to judge the situation. Since he had chosen to cooperate with Han Fei, he had to act like a cooperative partner. Chen Zhe, a soul warrior. Han Fei nodded. "You come with me. Let's cut the tree." Sun Mu, Yang Diyu's men, and Han Fei each took a side and began to pull the soft saws. Clatter, clatter! The soft saws went back and forth. When they pulled forward, the sound was low, and when they pulled back, it was slightly louder. In a situation where both sides were using spiritual energy, the efficiency could be said to be very high. In just one round, a huge saw mark was left on the trunk of the big red trunk. After more than a dozen rounds, the soft saws had already sunk into the big red trunk. Han Fei was speechless. "I've already been sawing like this. Why don't you give me a reaction? Could it be that you're waiting for me to cut you down before you react?" After 20 or 30 rounds, a squeaking sound came from above the big red trunk. Han Fei thought to himself, "I'm afraid something is going to happen." So Han Fei quickly recalled Little Black. Sun Mu and the others couldn't see the other side of the trunk, and Little Black spat out the fruit to Little White. Only then did Han Fei realize that Little Black had stolen a red ball in one breath. Han Fei immediately said to Little White via voice transmission, "Leave too." Suddenly, Yang Diu said with a giant axe in his hand, "Han Fei, what is your spiritual beast doing?" Little White slowly swam out from behind the trunk. Han Fei chuckled. "What can a spirit-swallowing fish do? It just wants to circle around the big red trunk to see if it has any reaction." Yang Diu shouted, "Put away your spiritual beast. Don't try to play any tricks. Otherwise, I can chop you and cut down the tree." Han Fei sneered. "Why don't you try? Believe it or not, I'll go up and provoke the Millennium Snapper instead of cutting down the tree. Let's see how you cut down the tree." The two looked at each other. In the end, Yang Diu snorted and didn't speak again. However, Yang Diu did something. He said to Mo Fian and Sun Mu via voice transmission, "I have a feeling that this guy is stalling for time. Besides, we've been cutting down the tree for so long. Why don't we see any movement from this tree?" Sun Mu responded, "It's a bit strange. Let's wait and see." Squeak! Just after they sawed the tree 100 times, a very loud squeak suddenly came from above. Immediately afterward, the big red trunk began to shake. The tree itself was shaking, as if it had come to life. Its body was shaking. In just a moment, the sky was full of red leaves falling, and its flames directly covered a radius of dozens of kilometers, enveloping everyone. Han Fei and the other three were the first to fall. They were at the trunk of the tree and couldn't run at all. Han Fei shouted, "Hey, do you still want to watch the show? If you have any trump cards, hurry up and use them to protect us. Buy us at least an hour before we have a chance to cut down this giant tree." Sun Mu and the others were speechless. An hour? What kind of trump card could last for an hour in this endless flame? But Han Fei didn't give up. He said via voice transmission, "Now we're all in the same boat. This tree doesn't distinguish which family you belong to in the Thousand-Star City. Even if you hide far away, you have to resist the red leaves all over the sky. Why don't you hide under the tree? As long as you persist through this period of time, we will win." Beside Han Fei, Chunju was horrified. "I can't hold on for so long. I will die." Han Fei sneered. At this point, no one can run away. Then, Han Fei spoke to everyone telepathically. "Don't hold back anymore. Just use all your spiritual energy. This is a tree after all." While bluffing, Han Fei pulled the soft saw. This time, he really went all out. Spiritual energy surged from his body, and he quickly pulled the soft saw with both hands, indirectly making the two people opposite him speed up. However, after pulling back and forth for no more than 10 times, a large number of sword-shaped red leaves stabbed at Han Fei and the others. Their ears were full of squeaking sounds. Han Fei shouted, "Hurry up, hurry up." Yang Diu cursed, chopped with an axe, and cut a red leaf. F*CK, give me a ring. Sun Mu hesitated for a moment and followed Yang Diu to grab a ring. When Han Fei refined this saw, He only set up 4 rings on each side. As a result, one of the other party must come to his side. He originally thought it would be one of his 2 subordinates. If they were on his side, he wouldn't be worried about being sneak attacked. Now, a sword chi swept away the red leaves, and Mo Fian appeared beside him. Mo Fian glanced at Han Fei with a cold face and said via voice transmission, "I know you won't be so kind. You should have guessed this result long ago." Han Fei's lips curled. "Didn't you guess this result? But you didn't stop me. This means that you are confident to survive these red leaves. Or even, you are confident to block the attack of those Millennium Snappers." Mo Fian pulled up a ring and then responded, "Yes, what we are worried about is the danger behind. Since you said you can cut down the tree, if you really succeed, we have to thank you. Who knows, we might really be able to unravel this ancient mystery. So why not?" Han Fei smiled faintly. "But in these red leaves, I need a lot of spiritual energy to support me. When I run out of spiritual energy, you have to help me." "No need, just a few spiritual fruits will do." Mo Fian snorted. "Why should I help you? You propose to cut down the tree. If you can't bear it, why should I help you?" Han Fei responded, "Do you want the sea token?" Mo Fian paused. "Will you give it to me? I have the sea token with me. As long as I'm in Sanaa, as long as I stay in the level 3 fishery, I will face your endless pursuit. I'm looking for opportunities, not looking for death. Instead, I might as well throw the sea token out and let you fight for it. Wouldn't I be happy?" "Huh? Do you think I will believe that?" "Whether you believe it or not, you will only lose a few spiritual fruits. Among the 3 of us, I will only give it to you because you are a girl. Those 2 bastards over there won't give it to me, even if they beat me to death. However, I'll have to give you the sea token in front of them. Otherwise, even if you deny it, I won't be able to explain myself and will still be hunted down." Mo Fian pulled the soft saw and wondered, will Han Fei really give up the sea token? Mo Fian couldn't help asking, "Do you know what the sea token represents?" Han Fei sneered. "Even a great opportunity is not as important as life. As long as you are alive, you will always encounter opportunities. But if you are dead, what's the use of a great opportunity? However, let me make it clear to you in advance. Although I have given the sea token to you, it doesn't mean I won't take it back. Once I'm strong enough, it's hard to say if the sea medallion will belong to you." Mo Fian tilted her head and took a deep look at Han Fei. However, she was blocked by the burning red leaves. Mo Fian giggled. "Okay, it's just a transaction of a few spiritual fruits. I can afford it. But remember, the Mo family is no worse than the Sun family. If you lie to me, I'll kill you." Han Fei said, "I don't have to lie to you. If you still dare to stay in the level 3 fishery after taking the sea token, I can promise you that I will come to you again." The corners of Han Fei's mouth were raised. No strong people were idiots. In the face of these people, conspiracies were meaningless. In the face of these people, conspiracies were meaningless. Or he could use an overt scheme to tell her that it was more effective than bluffing. After a while, Chunja, who was not far away, said, "Do you have any spiritual fruits? Give me one. I can't stand it anymore." Chapter 364. Not everyone could resist the calcination of the leaves of the big red trunk. Even Han Fei, who had the indestructible body, couldn't hold on for long in this endless flame. Within 100 seconds, his skin began to crack inch by inch. Even Mo Fian and the others, with their strength and physique as peak-level dangling fishers and the protection of external objects, found it quite difficult to hold on. For example, on Chunja's side, only cultivators with outstanding talent had managed to survive until now after struggling bitterly. Once their spiritual energy couldn't resist the burning, they began to ask for help. On Han Fei's side, the blue sea wandering dragon daggers cut a hole in the flame. Han Fei pointed a finger and a pillar of spiritual energy sunk into Chunja's body. Han Fei said, "Hold on." With that, Han Fei looked at Mo Fian. "Hey, can you help him? If he dies, our speed will be slower than the other side." Mo Fian was surprised. "Huh, you're also a spirit gatherer? Interesting. I can help him, but why should I help him?" You haven't fully exerted your strength. Do you think I don't know? However, Chunja's face changed drastically. If you don't help me, I'll lure the Millennium Snapper down now. Let's die together. However, just as Chunja was about to threaten them, a pitch-black vine had already climbed onto his back at some point. Mo Fian's red lips moved slightly, and in an instant, 100 black vines instantly entangled Chunja. Chunja looked horrified, and his skin was turning black inch by inch. Han Fei's face changed drastically. Are you crazy? What are you doing? Chunja still couldn't understand why this woman wanted to kill him at this time. At this time, he was still useful. An advanced dangling fisher was not weak. If he exerted his full strength, he could even hold on for 100 seconds. Why did she do it now? Mo Fian smiled coldly. He's useless after all. Since he came here today, he deserves it. Help me. Chunja wanted to catch Han Fei. Entangled by the black vines, his eyes were full of horror. Han Fei was not a bloodthirsty person, nor did he do it out of kindness. He just felt that since he called this person over to help him, it had something to do with him. So Han Fei moved his eyebrows and asked Little White to spit out a red ball. Han Fei stuffed the red ball into Chunja's mouth. I don't know what you'll be like after you become a fish. Will you still be you? However, I can't save you now. It's up to you whether you're willing or not. One didn't even need to think to know how strong a person's desire to live was before death. Chunja used the last of his strength to bite down on the red ball and swallow it. Han Fei ignored it and allowed the burning leaves to block his vision. I didn't expect you to have this fruit. However, rather than turning him into a fish, he might as well die. Han Fei snorted coldly. I don't want to talk to you now, so don't try to poison me with your poisonous ivy. At most, they would just shed all pretense of cordiality. I'd like to see if your protective artifact can withstand my full power. Mo Fian didn't expect that Han Fei would change so fast. Just for a passerby, Mo Fian couldn't help but shake her head. I don't have to fight you to the death. However, you are not ruthless enough, so it will be difficult for you to achieve great things. Humph! At this moment, Yang Yu said to her via voice transmission, Mo Fian, what's going on over there? Why is the power reduced? Mo Fian responded, the advanced dangling fisher is dead. Now, there are only the two of us. Sun Mu shouted, one of you go. In the next moment, in the burning flames, a mass of spiritual energy blasted at them. When the man came leisurely, Han Fei recognized that he was the master under Yang Diyu's command. At this moment, this man was red all over, and his skin was already showing signs of cracking. However, when this person arrived, without saying anything, he pulled up a ring and began to pull it. Han Fei was quite surprised. These people are so king strong. It had been 100 minutes since the red leaves fell, and his skin had begun to crack. Even one of Yang Diyu's subordinates was stronger than him. At this moment, the soft saw had sunk nearly 3 meters into the trunk of the big red trunk. Unfortunately, 100 minutes was too short. Even with the joint efforts of many people, they only managed to cut 3 meters. There was still a long way to go to 50 meters. Han Fei stomped heavily, and a spirit-gathering array appeared. Han Fei secretly activated the 10 spirit-absorbing war bodies, and a small amount of spiritual energy was injected into his body, but it was obviously not enough. But Han Fei couldn't show that he had endless spiritual energy in front of Mo Fian and the man next to him. So he said, via voice transmission, I can hold on for another 200 minutes. Give me the spiritual fruit, then, huh? Yang Diyu's man looked at Han Fei in shock. You can hold on for another 200 minutes? This man was shocked. It was already very painful for him to hold on for 100 minutes in this environment. However, Han Fei casually said that he could hold on for another 200 minutes. How could he not be shocked? Han Fei asked, You're risking your life now. Can't you, a peak-level dangling fisher, hold on? This man was speechless. As you said, I'm a peak-level dangling fisher. I'm 2 small realms higher than you, but the result is the same as yours. How can I accept this? Mo Fian didn't speak, but her eyes narrowed slightly. In terms of strength alone, Han Fei was indeed on the same level as ordinary peak-level dangling fishers. With this alone, Han Fei was indeed qualified to negotiate with her. After 200 minutes, Han Fei's body had been cracked like a porcelain doll. Yang Diyu's man, next to him, directly stuffed a spiritual fruit into his mouth. In an instant, the spiritual energy on his body's surface increased greatly, and his cracked skin was recovering quickly. Han Fei looked at Mo Fian. Spiritual fruit. Mo Fian flicked her finger, and a spiritual fruit flew to Han Fei. Han Fei's eyes flashed. After confirming that the spiritual fruit was fine, he swallowed it. At the same time, the spiritual energy on Han Fei's body surface also increased greatly. Besides, he also cast the divine healing technique on himself, and his cracked skin was recovering quickly. But he was not happy at all. When Mo Fian gave him the spiritual fruit just now, he saw that Mo Fian was unscathed and her skin was still smooth and tender. At that time, Han Fei felt that there were 10,000 iron-head fish galloping over his heart. This was the F*King gap, the most primitive gap. The children of big families were really different. No matter whether they had real skills or not, their strength was really not bad. This made Han Fei feel lucky that he didn't fight with them before. Otherwise, if Mo Fian and Sun Mu joined hands, he would have almost no chance of winning. When the soft saw sank 10 meters into the big red trunk, suddenly everyone's hands paused and they all looked up. There were more and more squeaks, and they were getting closer and closer. Mo Fian narrowed her eyes. Not good. The Millennium Snappers are coming down. Han Fei's face changed. Don't be confused by their voices. Yang Diyu scolded. Of course. Listen up. Even if you're bewitched, remember not to mess around with your hands. You have to pull the saw and cut this damn tree for me. Han Fei didn't want to talk to that idiot. He knew nothing but shouting. The Millennium Snappers had no attack power, but their songs could bewitch people. If it weren't for the fact that there was only one big red trunk here, the result would have been even worse. They could also control spiritual plants at this moment. The Millennium Snappers seemed to have come down collectively. Han Fei could even hear the sound of leaves being thrown off when they swam. Squeak. Yeah, it seemed that thousands of Millennium Snappers were shouting at the same time, and the burning red leaves were rolling and floating with the sound waves, as if the sound waves had set off undulating ripples in the water. Hearing the fishes cry, the picture in front of Han Fei suddenly changed. He was being chased by the people of the Sun family and the black-robed man on the dragon boat, and Lin Miao Miao in his arms was shot to death by an arrow. At that moment, Han Fei's killing intense sword, his eyes turned red, and he subconsciously wanted to hold the blue sea wandering dragon daggers. But the next moment, his hand seemed to be pulled by someone, which made him shiver and immediately come back to his senses. It turned out that Sun Mu and Yang Diyu were pulling the ring. But the squeak did not stop. The moment Han Fei came back to his senses, the picture in front of him changed again. That was the scene where the black-robed man shot an arrow at him. Facing the siege of 4 people, Han Fei was angry, powerless, guilty, and all kinds of emotions lingered in his heart. At this moment, the hexagon starfish, who hadn't spoken for a long time, said, "The person next to him is crazy. Attach." In this critical situation, the 9-tailed mantis shrimp attached to him in an instant. Next to him, Yang Diyu's subordinate had put down his armor box. In a rage, he opened the armor box and a large number of knives, swords, armor, and shields flew out. Han Fei was next to him and was the first to be affected. Fortunately, the 9-star chain danced wildly in the air, blocking the opponent's attack. If the opponent was conscious, the battle would definitely not be so simple. But now the opponent seemed to have lost his mind, and the way he attacked seemed very ordinary. Han Fei suddenly shouted, "Yang Diyu, you son of a B***T6, your subordinate is crazy." On the opposite side, Yang Diyu immediately responded, "If you can't stop him, go to hell." Swish, swish, swish. Under the effect of the saber manipulation art, the blue sea wandering dragon daggers flew out of Han Fei's body and pierced through the peak-level dangling fissure in an instant. Han Fei cursed back. "I've already killed him." It was not difficult to kill a peak-level dangling fissure who was in a daze and attacked randomly. What was difficult was that as soon as Han Fei shouted, the opponent next door exploded. Rumble. Han Fei and Mo Fian were directly blown away. Mo Fian was fine, but Han Fei vomited blood and half of his body was almost blown up. Puff, 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 damn you. Cough, cough. Han Fei didn't expect that a person who had been stabbed by him would explode himself. Wasn't he already bewitched? Why did he explode himself at the last moment? Han Fei knew how terrifying the self-explosion of a peak-level dangling fisher was. At such a close distance, he could only resist it with the help of the indestructible body. If it were someone else, he would have been crippled, if not killed. Han Fei cast the divine healing technique on him and heard Yang Diyu's voice transmission. Hey, Han Fei, don't play dead. Get up and work. Han Fei scoffed. F***ck off. Did you send someone to self-destruct? Although he said so, Han Fei had already returned to his position. Mo Fian said, You're completely fine? Han Fei was speechless. How can I be fine? My blood is worthless, isn't it? Didn't you see me vomit 3 mouthfuls of blood? Mo Fian was suspicious. But you're still fine. Although your aura is a little chaotic and your internal organs are a little injured, you actually took the self-explosion of a peak-level dangling fisher head-on with the strength of an intermediate dangling fisher. Your physique is unbelievably strong. Han Fei scoffed. So what if my physique is strong? I repaired it myself. Mo Fian giggled. You must have had some kind of opportunity. Otherwise, you shouldn't have such a physique. Just now, fortunately, you stood in front of me. Otherwise, even I would have been injured. Han Fei didn't bother to talk to Mo Fian. Anyway, he didn't get the opportunity from her family. Han Fei pulled the saw hard and said to the other side, Don't send more people to self-destruct. Let me tell you, you can't kill me. With that said, Han Fei released Little Black and Little White and said to Little Black, Go to the other side and bite the weakest one. Remember, don't bite the one with the big axe and the cold one. Han Fei sneered. Okay, laugh at me. It's just 2 people missing. It won't affect the overall situation. How many people had died today? Han Fei was sure that if it hadn't been for Sun Mu, Yang Diyu, and their group of peak-level dangling fishers, at least more than half of them would have survived today. Because of them, none of the people who should have survived. In the end, they even got themselves killed. But this was good. The fewer people there were, the more advantageous it was for him. The Millennium Snappers were very close, but these fish didn't rush up to attack because they didn't have sharp teeth. Although they had the means to control spiritual plants, they could only constantly control those red leaves to float to the people. But no matter how fiercely the leaves of the big red trunk burned, they were still limited to a certain degree. As long as they could withstand this degree, the number of leaves was only the amount of spiritual energy they consumed. After a moment, Han Fei heard someone on the other side say, There's something in these leaves that bites me. Han Fei cursed. Who the hell is this? Are you insane? Since when does a Millennium Snapper bite? The person on the other side scolded angrily. Han Fei, don't be arrogant. There's indeed something in these red leaves. Sun Mu said, Catch it when it bites you again. Squeak. Ah. As the Millennium Snappers kept chanting, the person seemed to be bitten again. First, he let out a blood-curdling scream, and then suddenly there was no sound. Immediately afterward, he heard Yang Diyu scolding, Sun Mu, your man is crazy. How dare he slash me with a knife? Han Fei only felt a fierce axe light chopping from the opposite side to his side. Immediately afterward, with a bang, another explosion sounded. It seemed that the person on the other side had also exploded, and at this time, Little Black had returned to Han Fei's side. Triumphantly, he opened his mouth and swallowed a mouthful of flames. Han Fei praised Little Black wildly. Good job. Eat more. Swallow all these flames. While he was still praising Little Black, Han Fei sneered. Yo, did you also explode on your side? Great. Out of the 30 or 40 people, now only the 4 of us are left. Tell me, how many people have you killed? Sun Mu said coldly. Shut up. Han Fei chuckled. Okay, I'll shut up. TSK. Hurry up. Otherwise, another one of you will go crazy later. Don't blame me if everyone dies here. A spiritual fruit could continuously provide spiritual energy. Although some of the spiritual energy dissipated, Han Fei still pretended to hold on for 3 minutes. At this moment, his body was really cracked again. At this moment, the four of them had only sawed about 20 meters. Han Fei sighed. Hey, another spiritual fruit. Mo Fian was suspicious. So soon? Han Fei was speechless. Do you think I am like you? After all, I am still an intermediate dangling fisher. A lot of spiritual energy is dissipating. I had just been seriously injured. How can my spiritual energy not be consumed quickly? Mo Fian didn't doubt him. At this moment, they were in a desperate state. Everyone was so busy that they didn't even have time to absorb the spirit fruit. Therefore, the spirit fruit was equivalent to a medicinal pill at this moment. However, unlike elixirs, spiritual fruits could provide a continuous supply of spiritual energy. The spiritual energy in pills couldn't provide such a long-term spiritual energy support. While Han Fei was pulling hard, the hexagon starfish on his shoulders said again, "There are more and more fish. It seems that a big fish has come." Han Fei's expression changed slightly. What does a big fish mean? Just when Han Fei and the others were almost sawing halfway, the leaves suddenly stopped falling, and the burning red leaves no longer attached to Han Fei and the others because they were no longer controlled. Finally, Han Fei vaguely saw Sun Mu and Yang Diu opposite him. The Yang Diu was looking around. What's going on? Is the tree afraid? Or is the tree too seriously damaged? Han Fei glanced to the side, only to see a layer of soil rising, and a white figure flashed past. When Mo Fian appeared, she had changed into a set of clothes. Mo Fian's face was black. Put on your clothes, okay? Han Fei looked down. Clothes? What are those? They have long been burned away. Han Fei immediately took out a set of clothes and quickly put them on. Sun Mu and the Yang Diu did the same. Han Fei shouted, "Hurry up, success is at hand." This is a rare opportunity. However, as soon as Han Fei finished speaking, thousands of Millennium Snappers had surrounded this place from all directions. As far as the eye could see, there were fish heads everywhere. If people with trypophobia saw this, they would probably be scared to death. Everyone subconsciously put down their hands. How could they continue sawing now? Obviously, something big was going to happen. The Mo Fian trio immediately gathered together, and even Yang Diu glanced at Han Fei. Han Fei, get the F*CK over here. Han Fei frowned, glanced at the school of fish, and finally chose to go over. He never thought that one day he would really fight side by side with the enemy. Among the dense Millennium Snappers, a giant Millennium Snapper that was more than 10 times the size of the other Millennium Snappers appeared. The big fish didn't seem to sing. It just swam forward. Yang Diu said in a low voice, F*CK, we're doomed. It's all Han Fei's fault. He insisted on sawing the tree. Now the Millennium Snapper has come out. Han Fei's face was black. F*CK off. If we don't saw the tree, this big guy won't come out? Wouldn't he just kill me? Now it has come out to meet us. Han Fei was talking nonsense, but his eyes were full of shock. The data in his eyes showed. Name, Yang Ryun, Sea Monster. Introduction, Exotic Millennium Snapper. Within a day, this demon completed the 5 stages of Spirit Awakening, transcending mortality, Spirit Guarding, Awakening, and Demonization. Level 40, Spiritual Energy 66216621. Demon Vein, Level 7, High Quality Realm Demon Transformation, Companion Spirit Unknown, Unabsorbable Gulp. Han Fei swallowed hard. When he saw the name, he was stunned. When he read the introduction, his heart was in turmoil. Is that Yang Ruoyan? Han Fei was a little suspicious. He had spent a lot of time with Yang Ruoyan. From the moment he arrived in San Francisco, this woman had always been in the Level 3 fishery. At this moment, he was suddenly told that Yang Ryun had become a fish. Oh no, a sea demon? This was not the crux of the problem. The key was that he saw the realms of Spirit Awakening, transcending mortality, Spirit Guarding, Awakening, and demonic transformation that he had never heard of before. He felt as if he had seen a shocking secret. Mo Fian's face was gloomy. Be careful. I'm afraid this demonic fish is not simple. Sun Mu's face was also extremely gloomy. We underestimated this place. Han Fei glanced at it and saw a dark green jade pendant in Sun Mu's hand. Although he didn't know what it was, it must be something that Sun Mu thought could save his life. Han Fei's face was also gloomy. His attitude towards Yang Ruiyun had never been pleasant. Would she come and take revenge on him? More importantly, did she still recognize him? For a moment, Han Fei didn't know whether he should hope that Yang Ruiyun knew him or not. If he said that he hoped that she knew him, what if Yang Ruiyun came to take revenge on him? If he said that he hoped that she didn't know him, what if Yang Ruiyun killed him at this moment? The Super Millennium Snapper in front of him was emitting a dense red light. Surrounded by countless Millennium Snappers, the red light became more and more intense. Every time the dense red light flickered, countless Millennium Snappers would squeak. However, this time, it should be a pure cry, without arousing anyone's inner demons. When the red light shone brightly, Yang Ruiyun was completely enveloped by the red light, and the four of them didn't dare to move. The point was that there was no place to run here, so they could only wait and see what would happen next. But in the next moment, something unexpected happened. In the red light, a slender white hand stretched out, followed by an arm covered with red muslin. Then, a slender calf walked out of the red light. Gulp! Not only Han Fei, but Mo Fian and the others also swallowed. They were children of big families in the Thousand Star City, but the experience of big families was also in the Level 3 fishery. In the Level 3 fishery, he was not as knowledgeable as Han Fei. At this moment, a person seemed to walk out of the red light. No, she had already walked out. When Yang Ruiyun's face emerged from the red light, everyone was stunned. Yang Diyu subconsciously took a step back. Just now, he almost strangled Yang Ruiyun to death, and now he was afraid that Yang Ruiyun would seek revenge on him first. Sun Mu's face was livid, and he asked Han Fei via voice transmission, "Who is this woman? She came with you. Don't tell me you don't know." Yang Diyu and Mo Fian immediately looked at Han Fei and even subconsciously took a few steps away. Han Fei was dumbfounded. Damn it, who should I ask? I'm not familiar with this woman. I just happened to meet her. Yang Diyu scoffed. Who are you kidding? In the huge Level 3 fishery? The Level 3 fishery, and you happened to run into him? Han Fei glared at him. Nonsense, you just happened to meet her now, didn't you? The moment Yang Ruiyun walked out of the red light had gradually faded. Of all the people present, Han Fei was the most shocked. Others hadn't seen the fish avatar technique, so they didn't know how terrifying it was. But he was clear, and there were countless cases in history to prove it. So far, except for one person who had successfully turned into an ironhead fish, all the others had died in the process of transforming into fish. And this was just transforming into a fish. The ultimate goal of the fish avatar technique was to turn people into fish or human beings at any time. Now he hadn't deduced the fish avatar technique yet, so he didn't dare to practice this combat skill at all. However, right in front of him, Yang Ruiyun had already completed the ultimate goal of the fish avatar technique and could switch between fish and human beings at will. This completely subverted Han Fei's understanding. Mo Fian said coldly, "It's a sea demon." No, this is not an ordinary sea demon, but a more noble race of sea demons. Don't hide it anymore. Just use whatever means you have, or you will definitely die today. Han Fei asked in surprise, "What is a sea demon?" Mo Fian took a deep look at Han Fei. "I don't know. It is said that sea demons only exist in the unknown place." We also learned some knowledge about sea demons from ancient books. Unknown place? Han Fei was speechless. Are all the unknown places this kind of monsters? Wait, didn't Old Bai say that the fish avatar technique is a forbidden technique? What the F asterisk CK? I can transform into a fish whenever I meet someone. Are you telling me this is a forbidden technique? Han Fei and the other three were very nervous. At this time, the sea token? That was not important at all. They had to stay alive to have time to think about opportunities. At this moment, Yang Ruiyun was completely different from the previous Yang Ruiyun. At this moment, She was wearing a graceful red gauze dress, and the skin inside was vaguely visible. Han Fei also found that her hair had turned red and was very long, reaching her calves. At this moment, her hair was moving with the waves. Han Fei couldn't help but ask, "Hey, are you a human or a fish?" Yang Ryun slightly turned her head, and a faint smile appeared on her delicate face. "I am now a demon." Han Fei felt his mouth was dry and his scalp was numb. Yang Ryun actually responded to him, which meant that she still had memories. In addition, he was surprised that Yang Ryun was not transmitting her voice, but speaking directly. Yang Diyu was a little stunned and asked the other three via voice transmission, What's going on? Has the seal outside been broken?" Sun Mu frowned. "Obviously not." Yang Diyu scratched his head. "Damn it, Mo Fian. Why did you ask me to explore the seaborne grassland? Now, this thing has become a demon. How can I fight it?" Mo Fian didn't speak. What's the point of saying this now? Before, they were all proud and arrogant people. It was rare for them to go out and explore the seaborne grassland. But who would have thought that such a big incident would occur? Yang Ryun tilted her head slightly and looked at Han Fei. "After all, I still have to thank you. If it weren't for you, I'm afraid I wouldn't have been able to come here. I'm afraid I won't be able to find my parents again in this life." Mo Fian and the other two looked at Han Fei. Han Fei. Yang Ryun walked on the waves barefoot and walked dozens of meters forward. A red light flashed between her eyebrows, and two Millennium Snappers appeared beside her. These two Millennium Snappers were very affectionate to Yang Ryun. They squeaked from time to time and swam around Yang Ryun. Yang Ryun reached out and stroked the two Millennium Snappers. Then she raised her eyes and said, "I hate this place, and I hate fisheries. The strong use their powerful means to enclose the sea area and let human beings kill each other. What's the difference between this and livestock?" Suddenly, Yang Ryun's eyes turned cold. "In this case, I'm going to defy fate. If people don't treat me well, I'll become a demon." Sun Mu said solemnly, "You can be a demon. Why do you have to embarrass us?" The corners of Yang Ryun's mouth curled up slightly. Suddenly, she pointed her finger, and the countless Millennium Snappers squeaked at the same time. However, the sound gathered at Yang Ryun's fingertips like invisible energy. Hiss! The seawater was split, and a red light spot flew at Yang Diyu. Yang Diyu's expression changed greatly. His face suddenly turned black, and a huge black scorpion melted into his body. Immediately afterward, the two black crystal axes emitted dazzling spiritual energy. Double axes and one to cut huge waves. Han Fei and the others couldn't help but retreat to the side. Han Fei was still surprised. This Yang Diyu is very strong. The power of this axe is even stronger than the fifth arrow of my war soul art. It's even comparable to the terrifying power of the sixth arrow. Crack, crack, crack. However, the mystic light slashed out by the giant axes shattered at a speed visible to the naked eye. Within half a minute, the red light fell on the black crystal axes. Kacha! Yang Diyu's spiritual energy protective cover was instantly shattered. Immediately afterward, a jade-colored ring on Yang Diyu's hand suddenly shattered, and a blue barrier blocked in front of him. The scene was very tense. Han Fei looked at this scene in shock. After 2 minutes, he thought to himself, did he block it? Crack! Suddenly, Yang Diyu's face changed greatly, and a crack appeared on the blue barrier. Crack! 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 Boom! After a stalemate for several minutes, the blue barrier was broken, and Yang Diyu was blasted away. He smashed heavily against the big red trunk, causing the trunk to tremble. Pooh! Han Fei's eyelids twitched, and he swallowed from time to time as he watched Yang Diyu spit out blood, as if it was free. Was Yang Diyu not strong enough? Of course not. Han Fei was confident that ordinary peak-level dangling fishers wouldn't be able to resist the attack of this guy. However, even that level of attack was broken by Yang Ryun with a casual flick of her finger. In the end, even his body armor couldn't block this blow. Yang Ryun didn't attack again, but looked at them and said, "Today, I won't kill you, but I'll take your memories." When Yang Ryun said this, Han Fei was shocked. Can a demon be so powerful? Can it take people's memories directly? The problem is that I still have a plan. My plan failed just like that. At that moment, Han Fei hurriedly retreated. He didn't want to lose his memories inexplicably, so he hid and forged the universe first. But before Han Fei jumped into the leaves, he saw a huge number of red leaves rushing at him. The moment they touched him, they suddenly exploded. Han Fei was furious. Damn it. Yang Ryun, you still owe me a favor. Yang Ryun smiled slightly. I won't kill you because I owe you a favor. Han Fei didn't feel good. Women, especially strange women, must not be trusted. I worked so hard to bring you here. Do you think it's easy for me? Han Fei said, Master Hexagon, hurry up and help me. Let me hide in your treasure gate for a while. However, Han Fei looked at his shoulder. Where was the King Hexagon Starfish? He didn't know when this guy had run away. Damn you, Hexagon Starfish, you cowardly starfish. However, in his mind, the voice of the Hexagon Starfish sounded, This demon is too fierce. I can't beat it. I'm leaving. Han Fei cursed. Hurry up and open the door for me. If you dare to leave, I will pinch you to death. Master Hexagon Starfish was speechless. Human, can you be reasonable? Although she's a little demon, she is still a demon. If I open the door in front of her, I will die. Han Fei said, Then you have to find a way to save me, or I will die too. If I die, you will die too. After saying this, Han Fei's eyes turned cold. He glanced at the Sun Mu trio, and then at Yang Ryun, his heart wavering. Should I try my best?